Almighty God, we give thanks to you, the creator of the universe, and humbly beseech you to direct and prosper the deliberations of the members of this house here assembled for the advancement of your glory and the trust and welfare of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Grant that peace and happiness, truth and justice may be established among us for all generations. Amen, amen, namaste.
Public business, government business, bills second reading.
Honorable members, the debate on the second reading of the following bill, which was in progress when the House adjourned on Monday, October 14, 2019, will be resumed. A bill entitled, An Act to Provide for the Service of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ending on the 30th day of September, 2020. Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I wish to start my third budget presentation by congratulating my colleague, the Honorable Minister of Finance, and the Honorable Minister of Planning and Development, and the staff of the respective ministries for presenting yet another financial package that is geared towards continued stability, development for the people of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, an exceptional financial blueprint with the theme Stability, Strength, and Growth. Madam Speaker, it is never easy to manage a country like Trinidad and Tobago under stringent financial circumstances. But during the last 4 years, this PNM government, difficult though it may be, has been successful in navigating this country out of turbulent economic waters back to stability, strength, and growth. This PNM administration has stabilized our economic outlook and has returned this country to a path of growth after years of stagnation. Trinidad and Tobago now enjoys a very stable and positive economic outlook, one that our younger generations can now look confidently towards with a future of hope and stability. A bright future, Madam Speaker, that only a PNM administration can provide. After all, it was Dr. Eric Eustace Williams, our founding father, who said, and I quote, "The alternative to the PNM is chaos and confusion." A statement which was endorsed by the member for Naparima on a UNC platform recently. Madam Speaker, in order to appreciate this budget, we must first take a look at where we came from. Madam Speaker, in so doing, I wish to remind this nation that between 2015 and 2017, this country witnessed a decline in its annual energy revenues to the tune of $16 billion. $16 billion that the previous government had at its disposal, and yet they ran a deficit budget and left behind billions of dollars in unpaid debts and no source of funds to pay them. Madam Speaker, this PNM government had to manage in these difficult circumstances. We imposed our own austerity measures without resorting to the IMF, and we took our own bitter medication to take care of ourselves. Now that we have stabilized the economy, the government has started to take care of the most vulnerable in the society, those in the lower income brackets. Madam Speaker, the increase in the minimum wage for all workers and the 15% increase in the salaries for CPEP and URP workers and the pension for daily rated workers will benefit over 300,000 citizens. And this, Madam Speaker, is a remarkable achievement for this government. Now that we have stabilized the economy, it is noteworthy that not one gazetted public servant was sent home. Not one social service was cut. In fact, we increased social services. When one considers the hand that we were dealt with in 2015 by a UNC government that was characterized by our citizens in 3 words, spend, squander, and steal, you can now appreciate the remarkable achievement of this government led by the Honorable Prime Minister. Madam Speaker, before I comments giving the people an account on the status of the performance of the Ministry of Works and Transport for the last 4 years and what they can expect in the coming years, I wish to again remind the nation of some occurrences at the ministry between 2010 and 2015. Madam Speaker, this ministry was dismantled into 3 different ministries: the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure, Ministry of Transport, and the Ministry of the Environment and Water Resource. This resulted in increased costs to the state, having to set up 3 additional ministries, and all the other costs as a result this division of the ministries. During this time, there were approximately 9 ministers involved in these 3 ministries, and at any point in time, there were a minimum of 4 ministers assigned to the portfolio. Madam Speaker, in 2015, after the general election, in keeping with the Prime Minister's mandate of smaller cabinet and to reduce administrative wastage, the functions were once again merged into 1 ministry with 1 minister. This has resulted in significant cost saving to the taxpayers to the tune of millions of dollars. Madam Speaker, one example of this can be seen in the post of chauffeurs. Taking into account that each one of these ministers had a personal chauffeur, and there were 4 of them at any point in time, this cost alone had a saving of $1.8 million over a period of 5 years. Wow. Madam Speaker, imagine overall cost of personal staff for ministers. Madam Speaker, it's on an average, it's about $650,000 per year per minister. And if you multiply that by 4, you'd recognize that we spent on personal staff for ministers $13.3 million in these 3 ministries over a 5-year period. I wish to remind the nation that when I entered the ministry in 2016, I inherited a ministry where my predecessor, the Member of Parliament for Laventille West, had the unenviable task of stabilizing a ship that was drifting. He started the process of steering the ship back into stable waters. Madam Speaker, despite the challenging economic circumstances and scarce financial resources to pursue all these development programs, we at the Ministry of Works and Transport did not roll over, go to sleep, or fold our arms. We continue fighting along with the limited resources. We started major development programs and commenced planning for others that will have a later start date. Madam Speaker, we have shown by our resilience and action-oriented programs that our mandate has been appropriately discharged. Madam Speaker, this government was elected on the theme, "Let's do this." Our manifesto was adopted as official government policy in 2015 and developed into Government Vision 2030 development document. In this document, 15 major infrastructural areas were identified as priority areas and were assigned to the Ministry of Works and Transport for execution. Madam Speaker, I am pleased to state that despite the challenges, we have made considerable progress on all 15 major projects, which will positively impact the lives of every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. I will now detail these initiatives. Madam Speaker, first program under the development program for the Ministry of Works was the Solomon Holtroy Highway Extension to Point 14. Madam Speaker, in 2015, this administration said that we would complete the San Fernando to Point 14 highway in a manner best serves the national interest and the interest of all affected parties and stakeholders. Madam Speaker, we need to note that this project was first tendered in 2008-2009. Initially, the proposed cost was above the engineer's estimate, and the ministry was undertaking the necessary reviews. This project was awarded in 2011 at a cost of $502 million, with a proposed end date of March 2015. In 2015, this administration was presented with an incomplete project that had the following issues: a bankrupt contractor, reduced scope, mismanagement in the land acquisition process resulting in over $500 million in claims against the state, properties acquired and no longer required, inadequate financial arrangements in place to complete the contract. In 2016, we, through NIDCO, terminated the contract with OAS. Demands were made on the contractor's standby letter of credit and approximately 934 million was retrieved. As we sought to restart the highway, there were protests on all fronts, from the unions, suppliers, subcontractors, and in some cases, members of the opposition. However, we persevered, and we were able to resolve all these challenges in May 2017. We restarted this project. The work was subdivided into 12 work packages to allow the opportunity for local contractors to compete with international contractors. To date, tenders have been invited for all 12 work packages and successfully awarded to local contractors. Work is being undertaken on all packages by 5 local contractors with an estimated completion date of December 2020. The good news for the traveling public on the Southern Peninsula is that the Mosquito Creek segment will be partially completed by mid-November 2019, which will allow vehicles to move to the higher embankment, thereby reducing the obstruction that comes when the high tide and consequential flooding. So what we will do, we will move the vehicles to the higher embankment while we work on the lower area. With respect to the issues of land acquisition, this government has taken a policy decision to streamline all acquisition and to pay outstanding sums to residents, providing all land acquisition process has been followed and certified valuations have been established. In respect of alleged corrupt practices in the area of land acquisition, this government has appointed a commission of inquiry to examine the issues and to make appropriate recommendations. This project would have seen direct job creations in the vicinity of 1,400 and indirect job creation of over 3,000 persons. Additionally, it is expected to result in significant reduction in travel time at peak hours. Madam Speaker, in 2015, we told this country, let's do it. Today, I say we are doing it. Madam Speaker, this administration has identified the Eastern Quadrant as a growth pole, which has significant potential for economic development. I now give an overview of 3 main projects on the Eastern Quadrant, namely the Churchill Roosevelt Highway extension to Manzanilla, Valencia to Toco Road, and the construction of the Toco Port, all identified in the administrative 2015 policy document. 2, Madam Speaker, the Churchill Roosevelt Highway extension to Sandy Grande. The ministry has commenced the construction of the Churchill Roosevelt Highway extension to Manzanilla. The focus on this project is to extend the highway to Sandy Grande in the first instance. An upgrade of the roadway to Manzanilla is also being undertaken, with further works to be completed at a later date. Phase 1, 14-kilometer segment starting from Kumoto Junction to the Toco Main Road. This phase consists of 11 separate work packages. 2 packages, 1A and 1B, have been awarded and are expected to be completed in 2020. In order to provide relief to the connectivity to the residents of Manzanilla, there is a plan to upgrade and rehabilitate the Eastern Main Road in lieu of Phase 2 at this time. Madam Speaker, we expect to utilize this highway to bring relief to the people of the Eastern Quadrant as early as July 2020. Madam Speaker, we told this country, let's do it, and we are doing it.
That's right, that's right.
Valencia to Toco Road, Madam Speaker. This 40-kilometer stretch of roadway upgrade from Valencia to Toco is now under construction. The pure unit is upgrading approximately 12 kilometers of the Valencia Road from the Eastern Main Road to the Toco Main Road at an estimated cost of $196 million. These works will include the construction of a 2-lane roadway, the construction of 3 roundabouts, intersections, the repair of approximately 4 slope stabilization failures, the widening of 8 bridges, the rehabilitation and extension of culverts, and the construction and rehabilitation and drains, and the construction of ancillary work. To date, all 8 work packages have been awarded to different local contractors with work faster pace. This phase is expected to be completed by mid-2020 with continuation to Phase 2 all the way to Toco. This road will significantly change the outlook of the Sandy Grande and its environs, waking up many dormant communities within the region, such as Valencia, Sangre Grande, Matura, Salibe, Rampanalgas, Cumana, Sanssouci, Toco, Grand River, Matlot, with new and limitless opportunities for business and economic investment for the eastern region. Again, Madam Speaker, we are doing it. The fast ferry port to Toco. Madam Speaker, this project consists of the development of a modern multipurpose Toco ferry port facility, which facilitates the provisions of the inter-island transportation for persons and passenger vessels and provision for a base facility for the operation of the Coast Guard, the provision for marina to facilitate berthing of yachts and the arrival of tourists to Toco, and the provision of a modern fishing facility for the fisher folks of the northeast Trinidad. Preliminary designs for this project have been completed. Surveys have also been completed. Currently, we are working with the EMA to fulfill all the regulatory requirements, and we expect to break ground by mid-2020. Madam Speaker, this government will complete all its statutory requirements prior to commencement of this work, similar to the Komoto to Manzalena project, which was the first highway ever built in this country with all requirements before ground was broken. The port is expected to be completed by 2022. Collectively, these projects will provide the following benefit: less travel time, particularly to the Valencia to Toco and Komoto to Manzalena; commercial activities, greater level of interconnectivities, creation of over 3,600 job opportunities, development of sectors of Sangre Grande, that is to say agricultural land, marine sports and medical education, real estate, etc. Currently, the route being used to Tobago is 157 kilometers or 4 hours away. This new connectivity point will be 44 kilometers or 45 minutes from Toco Bay. The new route to Sangre Grande will be 45 minutes and it will be 1 hour from Port of Spain and 45 minutes to Tobago. Madam Speaker, Toco, I predict, will be the #1 choice of port to get to Tobago. We remove 5, and Madam Speaker, I'm going in the order of the work, the projects that were given to the Ministry of Works, and I'm accounting for every project, and so far you have seen every project would have started. The removal of all traffic lights and construction of the overpass and interchange from Port of Spain to Sangre Grande. Under this project, Madam Speaker, is the construction of the Curep interchange. This is being constructed at a cost of $221.6 million, less than half the projected cost under the previous government. The Ministry of Works and Transport anticipate that this project will substantially alleviate the traffic congestion along the east-west corridor. We envisage full commissioning of this important project by the first quarter of 2020. All motorists proceeding along the Churchill Roosevelt Highway, both eastbound and westbound, will experience significantly less travel and a faster flow. This project is said to benefit approximately 300 commuters traversing the east-west corridor on a daily basis. Madam Speaker, contracts have also been awarded for preliminary designs for 2 additional overpass. The proposed location are Piaco and Macoya. One of these is expected to commence in 2020. In addition, Madam Speaker, a consultant have already been engaged to provide the designs for these 2 overpass. Madam Speaker, we are doing it. The Chaguanas Traffic Alleviation Project. Madam Speaker, this project is ongoing. Phase 1 has been completed and officially opened on June 21st. This has provided significant traffic flow and ease of access to surrounding areas via Sugrim Trace and Endeavour. Design phase for Phase 2 and 3 have been completed and will commence in 2020 and 2022 respectively. The construction of a first-class road to Maruga and a modern fishing port. Madam Speaker, the Maruga Road Rehabilitation Project extended from Pitikafe in the north to Marak in Maruga in the south. This project comprised the rehabilitation of the Maruga Road and the Laloon Road. It includes the design, widening, and construction of culverts, the design and construction of adequate drainage, construction of footpath as required, the design and construction of bridges, and the design and implementation of slope stabilization measures. This upgrade is expected to cost $179 million, with 60% of the projects completed with several work packages ongoing. Madam Speaker, this project is intended to upgrade the access to the fishing port and processing facility in accordance with the vision of this government. The port facility is envisaged to provide commercial and retail opportunities onshore, while berthing for marine vessels will occur a short distance offshore in keeping with the stipulations of the EMA. Detailed designs for this marina facilities were completed in July 2019. Detailed designs and tender documents for the landside facilities were completed in July 2019. The CC for the landside facilities were granted in August 2019. Tenders for construction of the landside facilities were invited on September 11th, 2019, and will close on October 23rd, 2019. A third turn-in is expected by the end of November. Finally, Madam Speaker, the people of Maruga will be getting their new projects, the marina, landside marina, by 2020.
Yes.
8, improvement and efficiency of air and sea transport, including the acquisition of new fast ferries. Madam Speaker, after the debacle of the Sea Bridge, I am pleased to report that the ministry has successfully brought stability and operational efficiencies to the inter-island sea bridge. Madam Speaker, this nation must also recall that when I entered the ministry, I met a sea bridge that was in a state of confusion. This was due mainly to the fact that the maintenance system of our vessels collapsed because of a decision by the previous government in 2014 to discontinue with the maintenance service of bay ferries, who have maintained our country's vessels since 2008. Additionally, because this government refused to be blackmailed into giving a 5-year contract without a proper procurement, the lone cargo vessel was withdrawn from the sea bridge, causing much pain and suffering to our people, especially those citizens of Tobago. Madam Speaker, those opposed to us were of the view that the situation created an opening for them to return to power by riding the wave of negativity and disinformation. This issue resulted in a joint select inquiry where, for the first time in the history, a sitting Prime Minister voluntarily subjected himself to be questioned by a committee comprising of independent, opposition, and government members of Parliament.
Transparency.
Madam Speaker, in their quest to find a minister, the minister myself, and the government at fault, Madam Speaker, the only major finding was that the procurement of the MV Superfast Galicia under the UNC government was questionable, and at this time, this matter is now receiving the full attention of the Court of Trinidad and Tobago for breach of contract and a breach of fiduciary duties. Madam Speaker, to address the problem of the sea bridge, this government took decisive steps for a short, medium, and long-term remedy. Firstly, Madam Speaker, we had the TNT Spirit and the Cabo Star. Then the Galleon Passage joined the fleet in 2018, and then the Jan de Valette arrived in Trinidad in June 2019. Madam Speaker, we have 2 new vessels coming in 2020, and at this point in time, based on the records at the Port Authority, the sea bridge is now the #1 mode of transportation to Tobago, and that is a far cry from where we were 2 years ago.
Well done.
Normalized.
Well done.
Let's get your voice.
You want to get my voice? All right.
Don't be distracted.
Madam Speaker.
Minister, Member Carney, you wish to make an interjection? No. Oh, so please comply with the standing orders. Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, construction of a new world-class international airport in Tobago. This project will see the building out of a new terminal building at the A&R Robinson International Airport. It will accommodate increased tourist arrival, expand and boost the tourist sector as part of the economic transformation for Tobago. To date, the THA has received EMA approvals to develop suitable lands for the relocation of affected residents. Construction on this new airport in Tobago will commence in early 2020 with the construction time of 12 to 18 months. This project will generate hundreds of job opportunities for the people of Tobago and contribute to the sustainable economic development of the island. Additional negotiations with the preferred contractor are ongoing. Madam Speaker, we are doing it. 10, comprehensive program for the construction and maintenance of all roads and bridges throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, the ministry has been implementing a wide number of projects in this area under the Bridges, Landslip and Traffic Management Program, as well as its program of upgrade road efficiency. Under the Bridges program, Madam Speaker, the Bridge Reconstruction Program consists of the reconstruction of 62 structures on the Highway Division Road network. In fiscal 2018, works continued on Phase 1 and 2, which are being implemented currently. Phase 1, 22 of the 25 bridges are open to traffic. Phase 2, 8 of the 12 bridges were opened. And in Phase 3, we are at the design stage with an additional 25 bridges. Madam Speaker, under the landslip program, in 2019, approval was sought and obtained for the implementation of Phase 2 of this landslip program, where 68 landslips have been identified. And at this point in time, 38 landslips are being designed. Madam Speaker, some of the projects implemented under the PR unit was the widening of the Churchill Roosevelt Highway eastbound and the westbound, Maracas Beach Facility, construction of the Sealots Overpass, the Diego Martin Highway pedestrian overpass, Sugrim Trace Endeavor, Naparima Mayaro Road, a lot of road work is going on up there, Port of Spain flood alleviation, the Naparima Mayaro Road, Sani Grande Road network upgrade, the St. Helena bypass, St. Augustine slope stabilization, and Madam Speaker, under the pure unit, we did 529 projects. And I don't think we could understand what is 529 projects, but understand the financial circumstances we're operating in. And one thing I can guarantee you that we're getting value for money as we go out. We did promise the population to do more with less, and I can give you the assurance at the Ministry of Works and Transport, we are doing a lot more with less. Madam Speaker, implementation of a comprehensive national drainage plan. This is what we had promised. Madam Speaker, upon taking office, I immediately identified drainage as one of the more critical areas under the ministry's portfolio. I met the existence of 5 plans: the North Oraput River Basin Study, the South Oraput River Basin Study, the Karapo River Basin Study, the Caroni River Basin Study, and the Ottawa River Basin Study. 5 studies, no action. Madam Speaker, some of these studies would have spanned the last government. So when I listen sometimes and I heard the member for Kuvana talking about all these studies, sometimes I want to ask, well, if the studies were there in your time, why you didn't implement them? There was one further study to be undertaken which dealt with the Northwest Peninsula. In examining the recommendations of these studies, it was found that in some instances, it called for a total relocation of communities. In addition, there's a need to engage further consultants for the development and detailed designs prior to implementation. The estimate on these projects will prove to be very costly and have potential to result in social and economic disturbances. In light of the above, Madam Speaker, the ministry sought to identify the most implementable aspect, while at the same time seeking international experts to bring all aspects of these existing studies into a workable drainage master plan with associated resources for implementation. In this respect, the Drainage Division is currently pursuing a technical assistance grant from CAF Development Bank to develop a drainage strategy plan to solve and mitigate flooding across Trinidad, both in urban and rural areas. It should be noted that CAF has also indicated its willingness to finance a short, medium, and long-term program to treat with flooding in Trinidad and Tobago. During the financial year 2018-2019, the Drainage Division undertook to implement projects within the realistic budget and a time frame for combating and treating with drainage and flooding throughout this country. One such project was the start of work in the Caroni River Basin, which came out of the Caroni River Basin study. So what we did, Madam Speaker, is we didn't just look at the plans and say they're too expensive. We took some aspect out of the plans that we could have funded, and we started. And that is why, Madam Speaker, we saw in the Caroni River, in the Greenvale area, all the way down to St. Helena, there was very little flooding, because some of these studies actually came out of the Caroni River Basin study. And what we decided to do is to look at the low-hanging fruits that we can start immediately, while CAF come up with a work program for us and a funding mechanism that we could implement most of these studies. Madam Speaker, 12, the National Transportation Plan. Madam Speaker, we have developed the terms and reference for this transportation plan for Trinidad and Tobago. It will take into consideration all modes of transport, air, land, and sea. We have sought to include the views of our major stakeholders, and we have engaged in extensive discussion with the IDB and CAF on the areas to be addressed. One of our major deliverables is the establishment of the Transit Authority. At this time, the terms of reference is before the Cabinet for its consideration. Madam Speaker, 13, construction of the new world-class container port at Port of Spain. The Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago have undertaken a review of its operation and against what is happening in the ports internationally and regionally. In May 2017, the Inter-American Development Bank, the IADB, on behalf of the government of Trinidad and Tobago, engaged a consultant study to examine the feasibility of the development of an inbound and outbound port and logistic hub in Trinidad and Tobago. Further, the consultant Marine and Transport Business Solutions, MTBV, was contracted to assist the government of Trinidad and Tobago in making a decision towards the best scenario for the development of a port and logistic hub at the port of Port of Spain. The consultant MTBS examined 3 scenarios. Madam Speaker, of the 3 scenarios, the study concluded that these scenarios were financially not feasible and were not in alignment with the objective to attract private sector participation, which was prescribed in the Vision 2030 National Development Strategy, 2016 to 2030. The study further concluded that a financial decision on the location, the final decision on the location of the new inbound and outbound port logistic hub will not be taken in the short term, and recommend the implementation of an interim solution for the improvement of the current ports of Port of Spain. In this regard, the Port Authority of Trinidad and Tobago has recommended that the rehabilitation of the current port is a preferred option in the area. The details proposed are being developed and subsequently and will soon be submitted to Cabinet by mid-November. Madam Speaker, we are doing it. We will fix the port of Port of Spain once and for all. Madam Speaker, construction of the San Fernando, 14, construction of the San Fernando to Mayaro Freeway. And I've heard the leader of the opposition say that if ever she gets back into power, God forbid, that they're going to start this project. I just would like to remind the population of what we went through with the San Fernando to Point Fortin Highway. This project was designed under the IDB Trunk Road Expansion Project. Consultants were procured for conceptual design for this project. It was broken into 2 phases, the San Fernando to Princetown and then Princetown to Mayaro. Madam Speaker, detailed designs have been completed for the San Fernando to Princetown, and acquisition commenced in the Taruba area. The alignment and conceptual designs for the Princetown segment has been initiated. The intentions in review of this first leg is with a view to construct. However, at this time, while pre-construction work is being undertaken. Construction is not envisaged at this time based on the number of projects being pursued and a desire not to overheat the sector. Madam Speaker, on completion of the Solomon Holtroy Highway extension to Point 14, attention will be refocused on this project by 2021-2022. Madam Speaker, construction of the Port of Spain to Chaguaramas Causeway. The desire to reduce traffic congestion along the Western Main Road to Chaguaramas has long been a desire of the Ministry of Works and Transport. Given the area and the peninsula, it has with its issues of alignment and environmental concerns. In this context, the intention is to address this project in two main planning horizons: widening the Western Main Road from Goodwood Crescent to Chaguaramas Broadwalk to 3 lanes. The study detailed designs and construction work to widen this Western Road in 3 lanes, the selected areas and the minimum acquisition impact on the implementation is an automated reversible lane sign. In other words, Madam Speaker, without having to go into any major acquisition, we are looking to convert the 2 lanes into 3 lanes and put automatic signs so that when you're coming out in the morning, you have 2 lanes coming out and 1 going in. On an evening, when the traffic is going back in, you reconvert it. So that is the short-term plan. And Madam Speaker, very soon, a note will be going to Cabinet to trigger again the PPP for the causeway. We are doing the detail works right now, and it will be presented to Cabinet, and we will be, if Cabinet approves it, looking for a PPP for the causeway. The short term is to use 3 lanes going in. The long term is to reconsider the causeway. Madam Speaker, those were the 15 areas that were earmarked under the People's National Movement Manifesto, which became government policy. And as you can see, the ministry would have addressed all 15 projects. All 15 projects. Madam Speaker, some other areas that I would like to speak about in the Ministry of Works and Transport, because the Ministry of Works and Transport, I think, is probably one of the largest ministries in Trinidad and Tobago. And one area that a lot of focus is being targeted, is being challenged, is really the licensing division and the transformation of the licensing division. Madam Speaker, this PNM government is on the cusp of unveiling sustainable and revolutionary transformation of the licensing division. Madam Speaker, the transformation that is about to be unveiled is unparalleled and unmatched to any transformation initiative in the history of the licensing division in Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, what we are about to unveil must be examined in light of the recent history of the transformation under the previous government. Madam Speaker, the previous government idea of transformation is the construction of a large building and purchasing overpriced properties from their friends and financiers, and I will get to that. Madam Speaker, this country will recall the following facts. The previous government raised financing through the issuance of a bond via NIPDEC to the tune of $367 million, which was originally budgeted at $45 million. In other words, Madam Speaker, the building in Caroni was budgeted for $45 million. A bond was raised for $367 million. The purpose of the bond was to construct 3 MVA access centers in Port of Spain, San Fernando, and Tobago, along with an MVA head office in Caroni and 2 port facilities. So this bond was to do all these things, build 3 buildings, 2 port facilities, and the head office in Caroni. Without the requisite cabinet approvals, the majority of the financing that was available was used to construct a single head office in Caroni to the tune of $260 million.
Shameful. Yes, I is.
Millions were used to place a structure over the Port of Spain license office to prevent leakage when it rains. When this government came into power, expenditure and commitments from the bond amounted to $341.7 million. And as a result, and a resultant balance of a mega $36 million. Almost all of the $368 million that was raised on the bond was pumped into one building that was originally priced and scoped at $45 million. In true PNM style, with the $36 million balance in the bond, the Ministry of Works and Transport was able to accomplish the following through an approved program of works to achieve the transformation initiative. In other words, Madam Speaker, what this money was supposed to do, they pumped all into one building. We ended up with $36 million at NIPDEC, but we had to do the transformation. So this is what we were able to accomplish. We are going to construct a new license office in Arima from the limited amount of money. We are upgrading the current license office in Arima, all this from the same money. So we are upgrading the existing one while we have plans to build a new one. We are upgrading Port of Spain license office, vehicle inspection area. We are constructing a brand new licensed satellite office in Guayco for the people of Sani Grande, Toco, Valencia. A new license office coming to Sani Grande. As a matter of fact, construction have already started. We are upgrading the license office in Port of Spain, St. James, and San Fernando. We have outfitted a brand new traffic enforcement center in the Caroni building as part of the operationalization of the Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Act. We are engaging an initiative to train and develop staff. We are about to roll out a comprehensive public education campaign to launch new transformation initiatives in the licensing division, as well as operationalization of the Motor Vehicle and Road Traffic Act. All this, Madam Speaker, with a mere $36 million. Madam Speaker, you can imagine if we had $300 million, what we would have done with the licensing office. Wow. Madam Speaker, it gets worse. They purchased a structure, unsound building at Robertson Circular Road in Arima for $27 million. Under the then Minister Devan Maharaj, despite being warned, but here it is, despite being warned that the building was unsound. So before they purchased the building, they got a report that the building was not sound and they should not buy the building. They went ahead and they purchased the building. This money did not come from the bond money, although they were supposed to build a building in Arima from the bond money. They went to PTSC. How PTSC got involved in that transaction up to today is still a secret. PTSC purchased the building for the Ministry of Works.
What?
Right? For $27 million. After the purchase of the property, NIPDEC produced a report showing that the building was unfit for human occupation. A subsequent evaluation done by the ministry showed that the real value of the property was $17 million. In other words, we paid $27 million for a building that was valued at $17 million, and it was unsound for human occupation. Additionally, the previous government spent $12 million. Now remember, all this was supposed to come from the bond money. So they spent $12 million on designs for a new MVA building for Arima at an estimated cost of $140 million. So in other words, what they raised the bond money to do, the transformation, they spent it on one building and they wanted an additional $300-400 million to continue the work. We took $36 million that was remaining, and we're going to achieve everything. As a matter of fact, the Minister of Finance will be very happy that we're getting a new building in Arima, new one in Sani Grande, upgrading all with the $36 million. Madam Speaker, and I wouldn't go into the details of the license office, all the new things that is coming on stream, the merit point, the red light camera system, but it's a major transformation taking place at the licensing office. And what we feel is that with technology being used, we could minimize the unethical practices that take place at the license office. Because I am not going to put my head in the sand and say license office is the best place on earth. It is not. But we intend to take the fight on and clean up license office. Madam Speaker, let me go into another area that I'm very proud about. And it's an area that have been getting a lot of licks in this country. Madam Speaker, the Unemployment Relief Program. And why I'm speaking about the Unemployment Relief Program, it does fall under the Ministry of Works. And I do like a challenge. And in my opinion, the challenge at the URP was how do we get value for money? Madam Speaker, the Unemployment Relief Program, based on its mandate, is providing more employment with less allocation than the previous administration. Madam Speaker, the Unemployment Relief Program has moved from being described as a ghost, lazy, collecting pay for no work done, to a meaningful unit under the Ministry of Works and Transport, providing tangible results to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. This feat has been accomplished by astute management and leadership, constantly monitoring and evaluation with a desire to ensure that this credible input towards sustainable development for this country. In short, Madam Speaker, let me just go to 2014-2015. Madam Speaker, in 2014-2015, the allocation to the Ministry of the URP was $725 million. In 2018-2019, Madam Speaker, the allocation was a mere...
Minister of Works and Transport,
So,
the original speaking time is now spent. You have 10 more minutes to wind up. You may proceed.
Madam Speaker, this went down to a mere $182 million. But what were we able to achieve compared to what was achieved in 2015? Madam Speaker, in 2015, the URP boasts of doing 149 projects. But what the URP did not say is that all these projects, almost every single one, was built by large contractors. So here you have a program that is catered for unemployed people, getting $725 million. But the bulk of the money goes to contractors who are worth over $250 million, in some cases $1 billion they're worth. But they are getting the money from the Unemployment Relief Program. And they boast of doing 149 projects with large contractors. And when I say large contractors, I mean the contractors who are building highways in this country. What we were able to do is to transform URP, where in 2018-2019, URP did 150 projects, all in-house, by URP staff. So what we can do, we can go out there and see where the money from the Ministry of Finance is going. We can see box drains, we can see pavements. They move from cleaning 80-something schools to over 250 schools. So the people in URP, for this $182 million, you're actually seeing something now of $725 million. What you saw is a lot of big contractors. URP was used as a procurement agency, and I make no apologies for that. URP is supposed to be an unemployment relief program, not a place where large contractors will go and get contracts. We have brought back that to the URP, and URP is now doing a lot of in-house work with their staff. Madam Speaker, our Coastal Protection Unit, and we can go on and on. This is another division of the ministry. I identify the coastal erosion areas as a major challenge for us. At this point in time, we have 9 coastal projects ongoing throughout Trinidad, and we do have some projects in Tobago. We have the South Cocos Bay Shoreline Stabilization, the Capdeville Shoreline Stabilization, the Matlot Grand Riviere Shoreline Stabilization, Sanssouci, Cocos Bay Shoreline, Quinam Coastal, the Manzalina, the Shoreline Management Plan for the Manzalina Beach, which spans from Manzalina all the way to Radic Point in Mayaro. We are doing a study there. Construction of a breakwater system for the Manzalina Grand Beach Resort, and the South Cocos Bay Shoreline Stabilization. Madam Speaker, we are working with CAF and the IDB to not only just create programs, but they are quite prepared to fund all our coastal programs, because we at the ministry see our coastal projects as being major projects because we need to protect our country. Madam Speaker, let me just talk a little bit on procurement, because Madam Speaker, what I can say is that under this minister in 2016, the ministry has sought to adopt all the requirements of the new procurement legislation and has established a procurement division and continue to liaise with the Office of the Procurement Regulator to ensure that all guidelines are adhered to. And so, Madam Speaker, although the procurement regulation have not taken root at the ministry, we have been practicing proper procurement regulation. And that is why I have challenged any contractor who feels that they would have been treated wrongly. They can come to the ministry, and we had some of them. They came in and we showed them the process to ensure that all procurement under the Ministry of Works and Transport at this time is being conducted in a manner that can stand scrutiny. And we eagerly await the new procurement regulations. We have been practicing it since 2016, and that is why, Madam Speaker, you would have heard a lot of allegations from members on the other side and some spokespersons, but there have never been any scandal under the Ministry of Works that could have couldn't stand up to scrutiny. And I challenge any member on that side, I challenge anybody on that side to bring one piece of information that shows that this government condone any level of corruption.
Well said, well said.
Yes, and Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister went to a joint select and he had said that there was corruption in the port.
Yes.
And there are people before the courts right now for that corruption.
Yes, that's what he said.
Some of these people have been very close to members on the other side. As a matter of fact, they were appointed to boards.
Oh.
To boards under the last government. So yes, there's corruption at license office, there's corruption at the port, but we intend to deal with it. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Works and Transport is not a perfect ministry, but no one can doubt that it has delivered over the last 4 years. I encourage all citizens to pay close attention to some of the milestone projects that we are about to commission over the next 6 months. We are taking Trinidad and Tobago to a different level. As a true Caribbean leader, we will transform this nation in ways that cannot be compared to the past eras. But despite the challenges, Madam Speaker, this ministry, under esteemed leadership of my permanent secretary and a cadre of capable technocrats and administrators, performed above and beyond the call of duty. It is my intentions for you to realize that as a collective body, and without a doubt, I am convinced that I have the most powerful and dedicated team of public servants, not forgetting my Saturday crew, who relentlessly follow me through the length and breadth of this country, including in all the opposition constituencies. Sorry, Mr. Imbert, for that one. The many experts attached to this arm of government, waxing resourceful during this volatile economic times, their efforts have fueled the accomplishments I have presented today. All our projects are people-driven and people-focused. These are geared towards impacting positively on the lives of citizens and improving our standard of living for every community. Madam Speaker, the Ministry of Works and Transport is on the march to deliver quality infrastructure and transportation service to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. We intend to accelerate our momentum of development because the country deserves this. We will not be deterred or detracted by those whose agenda is not in alignment with the people's agenda, but we will work with all parties whose interest is for a better Trinidad and Tobago. In 2015, we asked the nation to let's do this. Based on what I have said today, I think without a shadow of a doubt, we have shown that we are doing it. And I give my commitment that we will continue to do it. Let's do this together for a better nation. Let's cast petty politics and differences aside, and in the words of the late Calypsonian, the merchants, let's build a nation together. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Member for Chaguanas West.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity to rise to speak in this budget debate. And before I go into my main presentation, I want to respond to the presentation of the Honorable Minister of Works and Transport. Madam Speaker, you cannot believe anything that this minister says in this parliament. Because this honorable minister was asked a question by my colleague, the member for Couva North, with respect to an IDB loan. And his response was that it was never approved. I want to make reference, Madam Speaker, to the news release from the IDB of December 5th, 2013. Trinidad and Tobago to alleviate flooding in the Port of Spain with IDB loan. A loan of $120 million will improve drainage infrastructure and aid institutional strengthening of the sector. Trinidad and Tobago will minimize impacts from the lack of or insufficient urban drainage infrastructure in critical areas of the city of Port of Spain through a US $120 million loan from the Inter-American Development Bank. Trinidad and Tobago is vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, which is aggravated by high population density and economic pressures on coastal areas. Flooding in both urban and rural areas is a frequent occurrence, leading to substantial losses of property, agriculture, human health, and detriment to Trinidad's quality of life. Today, the economic damage caused by floods in the targeted project area is estimated at US $11.6 million. This IDB finance program will mitigate flooding events in the city of Port of Spain by supporting the improvement of catchment management through the implementation of drainage infrastructure such as interceptors, drainage system, detention ponds, and pumping stations. This IDB loan, Madam Speaker, is composed of US $120 million over 25 years with a 5-year grace period and an interest based on LIBOR. So that was in December 2013. This is what the Honorable Minister in Parliament on 4th July 2018, Madam Speaker, had to say. And I read the headline. Sinanan, IDB never approved $120 million loan for flood relief in Port of Spain. Now, if it is that you can tell a big untruth like this, how can we believe your 529 projects? Your 529 projects. You know, Madam Speaker, Charles Dickens gave us through Oliver Twist the Artful Dodger. In Trinidad, I'm afraid, with the tenure of the Honorable Minister of Works, we have become the pothole dodgers. So this $120 million loan it has to deal with the problem in Port of Spain. But this is what he told the Parliament. Minister of Works and Transport, Rohan Sinanan, said a proposed $120 million loan from the Inter-American Development Bank, which was supposed to help alleviate flooding in the capital, was never approved. Speaking in Parliament on Tuesday in response to a question put forward by opposition MP Ramona Ramdial. But, so when the Honorable Minister speaks about engaging CAF, engaging the IDB, Minister, you are without credibility. Honorable Minister also indicated that the Sea Bridge, when he became the minister, was in a state of confusion. If the Sea Bridge was in a state of confusion, you just have to point to your colleague, the member for Laventille West. Because you inherited the ministry from him.
And he was docking decisions as to what to do with the superfast Galicia because he felt that it was procured during the UNC time and that therefore they had to find a way to get rid of the superfast Galicia. And he never made a decision. So the Charter Party came to an end. So the confusion, my good Honorable Minister, came from your colleague. You know, Madam Speaker, the minister looking through, as ministers are wont to do, looked through rose-tinted glasses. She says, everything is fine with the sea bridge. I spoke to people from Tobago this weekend in the airport. I can call their names. They say problems in Tobago, both the sea bridge and the air bridge. So, Minister, rethink. You need to rethink. And then when you look at the procurement of the Galleon's Passage and the Jean de Valette, and the minister says he's, adhering to all procurement regulations, that the procurement regulator he's in close contact with. Why have you procured these vessels without instituting the legislation to protect the person in Trinidad and Tobago?
5 years later, they don't.
Madam Speaker, the Honourable Minister spoke about doing elements of the Royal Haskoning study. That was a study of the Caroni River Basin. He's quite right in indicating that there were 5 studies. But the Caroni River Basin is perhaps the most important catchment area. There are operational detail for that study. So that you build 21 catchment ponds, you put retention dams, and you are able to capture the water. What is the situation in Trinidad today with respect to water? And I will deal with him subsequently. But the Minister of Public Utilities came to this Honourable House. And he ducked the water issue. He was a duck without water. He ducked the water issue and started only talking about light bulbs and cooperatives and other financial issues. When the major issue in this country, whether or not we will have sufficient water in our reservoirs for the 2020 dry season. That is the big issue. But the Honourable Minister of Public Utilities ducked that issue. So similarly, when you start doing the dredging and the embankment on the Caroni River, and the minister is right to claim that, okay, they did some work in the Greenville area, it didn't flood St. Helena area, which I'm very familiar with, that whole Caroni River Basin area. I currently live in that area, Madam Speaker, and I'm quite familiar. In my own constituency in Caroni, the embankment became breached, and it was corrected. But the fact of the matter is that you have to deal with the issue of investment in the retention ponds on all the tributaries in the northern range in order to deal with the runoff and the flooding that takes place. Minister says nothing about that. He's thinking about low-hanging fruits. I cannot fault him for that. But you need to make serious investment decisions if you're going to deal with the whole issue of the impact of climate change in this country, Madam Speaker. The minister went on to talk about URP. I want the minister or one of his colleagues to explain to us why was the URP, the man in charge of URP in Central, Indar Parasram, was fired yesterday. What? Why was he fired yesterday? Is that a precursor to the election campaign for the local government, in which they mobilize the URP for purposes of vote turnout? Well, Minister, if you don't know who Indar Parasram is, you better find out. Madam Speaker, so that therefore, Madam Speaker, so we recognize this reality. We recognize this reality. You see, Madam Speaker,
I just want to remind members about Standing Orders 53.1, E, F, and G. All right? let's conduct the debate with the proper decorum. Member for Shogunas West.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So, was Indar Parasram redeployed for purposes of the local government election campaign? These are questions that the Honourable Minister needed to answer instead of indicating that they're getting value for money. Madam Speaker, the reality is that when you look at what is happening in the Ministry of Works, the minister is a hard worker, but he's not dealing with the fundamental issues affecting the whole question of drainage. Look, this thing of Port of Spain. Port of Spain was in a sustainable cities program. And that therefore, when every time the rain sets up, Port of Spain floods. Why it is this an indicator of what he said? That we are doing it? We are doing it? Well, do it for Port of Spain. He is the deputy leader of a political party that has its navel string buried in Port of Spain. Do it for Port of Spain. So that what you have then, and when you complain about lacking funding, you had 120 million US, a 5-year grace period, over and 25 years repayment schedule. Madam Speaker, it is hard to get multilateral loans because I cannot think of one substantial loan that this administration has procured for purposes of infrastructure development over the last 4 years. Not one. Because the conditionalities, the requirements require concentrated work and championing of that cause. Madam Speaker, and that is the problem, that we have a city that is flooded all the time. Doma is complaining, the merchants complaining, public servants complaining, the workers complaining, and all you get is a banana republic response that the money was never there. Madam Speaker, that loan was under my watch. And what happened is that you require, it was in December 2013, it was signed by the then Honorable Minister of Planning and Sustainable Development. And you require to fulfill certain conditionalities. In 2017, that loan was sent back. So that is what the problem is. Port of Spain will flood and continue to flood under the administration of the PNM. Madam Speaker, and the Minister of Finance, he was caught in the flood. Yes. He was caught, it became all over social media. It is almost as if it was poetic justice. Madam Speaker, as we sat here over yesterday, an event of epic proportions took place in Vienna. Eliud Kipchoge ran 26.2 miles under 2 hours. Best in class in the world. He indicated it was equivalent as to when Roger Bannister did the 4-minute mile, under 4-minute mile, and Neil Armstrong when he walked on the moon. But we lead a very sedentary approach here. It is as if we do not have an appreciation of what is happening in the world. And this budget, in its presentation, the pedestrian approach to the problems we experience. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, we have the capacity in this country, as we have demonstrated in the athletic and cricketing arena, to be best in class in the world. To be best in class in the world. And I want to deal with the Minister of Finance in his budget response. He indicated in his budget statement, all right, budget statement, in his budget statement, through which I am responding, water production and distribution. Minister went on to complain about it, that despite increasing investment to improve this essential public service delivery to the tune of more than 30 billion over the last 10 years, and for a country with a total area of 1981 square miles and a population of 1.3 million, only 50% of the population in northwest Trinidad receives a supply of water less than 3 days per week. Similarly, in south and central Trinidad, the delivery service is below par, but in the northeast of Trinidad, the delivery service is superior, with 70% of the population receiving full and continuous service. We acknowledge that these levels of service are unacceptable, and we plan to fix them.
4 years later.
But, Madam Speaker, and he goes on to state, this program is comprehensive both in scope and in scale, and I will leave the details of the holistic and cost-effective approach in confronting water challenges to the Minister of Public Utilities in his contribution to the budget debate. The minister came here, talked about cooperatives, talked about light bulb, talked about nitrogen, as if he have that fixation, you know. So, Madam Speaker, he ducked it. He ducked the real issue affecting the country with respect to water. And I want to, because I want to continue the theme, Madam Speaker, of best in class. Because when we were confronted a similar issue back in 2010, Madam Speaker, what did we do? We did an analysis of the infrastructure network of the Water and Sewerage Authority. And this is what we found out. In 2010, the pipeline network consisted of 6,160 kilometers of pipelines. An analysis was done, and the following were the findings. 1, 52.6% of 3,249 kilometers of pipelines were found to be in good condition. These comprise PVC, ductile iron, high-density polyethylene, and steel. Secondly, 26.4% or 1,631 kilometers of pipelines had completed its life cycle and were in need of change-out. These comprise cast iron, asbestos cement, cast steel, and gray PVC. Thirdly, 21% or 1,290 kilometers of mains were further needed to extend to areas with no mains existed and to replace long service connections, which were a major source of wastage at the time. Madam Speaker, in determining our tenure for that period, during the period February 2011 to September 2015, through a rigorous program, range replacement program, a total of 1,385 pipeline projects were completed, resulting in the installation and replacement of 1,016 kilometers of pipelines in north, south, and in Tobago. These projects, together with other capital works, benefited customers receiving a 24/7 supply from 18% in 2010 to 72% in 2015. Madam Speaker, the minister talks about leaks when he has given his interviews. In September 2015, the total leaks recorded on the job management system storms total less than 1,000. Today, in 2019, the number is in excess of 4,500 and continues to climb. So, Madam Speaker, these 1,385 projects was at a cost of 1.285 million. And the 45 projects that were in progress, which we left, which is now adumbrated in the budget statement and in the PSIP and in the enterprise program. 45 projects in progress, which when completed, will install a further 34.47 kilometers of pipelines at an estimated cost of 60.92 million. Madam Speaker, that is what is required, a coherent program. There are hundreds and hundreds of pipelines located in Machin, and there is no coherent replacement program by this PNM administration. So come the dry season, we are already flagging there's going to be a water problem in the country because of the lack of organized harvesting of the water, the lack of organized pipeline replacement, and that therefore you have a minister who only thinks about the money in hand and without thinking creatively as to how to solve the problem. But, Madam Speaker, the Honorable Minister of Finance also spoke about the wastewater sector. Madam Speaker, in 1965, there was the lock joint program. 1965. Then there was no investment. The next investment in wastewater sector took place in Tobago, the Scarborough wastewater treatment plant. That was built in 1980-81. Only 5 persons in 2015. When 2010, when we reached there, only 5 persons were connected to that. We got an IDB grant to connect 1,100 persons to that Scarborough wastewater plant. Because you know why, Madam Speaker? The wastewater was leaching and bleaching the coral, moving into the shoreline. But we went further, Madam Speaker. In 1999, you had a plume of sewage from the 4 ponds in the 23-acre site in Beetham, leaching, moving into the Gulf, a 12-mile plume of sewage in the Gulf. Because you had 4 ponds that was taking the wastewater, and that was just merely by attrition flowing into the Gulf. We started the Beetham wastewater plant in 1999. It was completed in 2004. In 2004. So that was the next investment we made as a society in the wastewater sector, Madam Speaker. And then in 2015, Madam Speaker, on the basis of an IDB loan, again, we then provided, Madam Speaker, on the basis of an IDB loan, the Malabar and Maloney wastewater treatment plant. You had 16 tributaries moving into the Caroni, dumping sewage into the Caroni River. And then we took that water up, then treated and made it potable. So it was necessary for the environment to make this investment. So you had the Malabar Tree and the Maloney treatment plant. That was signed by the People's Partnership Administration. That was the Malabar has been completed. San Fernando wastewater treatment plant. That is ongoing. There has been some delay with that because of a lack of management on the part of the current administration with respect to that project. It is the contractor Acciona Agua. They increased the contract value by over $19 million when it was a fixed price contract, Madam Speaker. So that therefore you have a situation where the investment, the environmental investment, was done by the People's Partnership Administration. So that when the leader of the opposition spoke about the environment and the need for recycling, the need to deal with the whole environmental impact of waste, Madam Speaker, we have credibility, unlike the Honorable Minister of Works. But, Madam Speaker, so whilst that project is going on, that's only phase 1. Phase 2 and phase 3. Phase 2 and phase 3 of that project is stalled. Because now that you build the plant, then you have to connect to the household. So that is phase 2. Another $100 million USS program, but nothing is happening. So you understand what it is when the minister says, we're doing it. From where I stand, Madam Speaker, they're just not doing it. Madam Speaker, so that is with respect to wastewater. No coherent plan on their part, no continuation, and we regard government as a continuum. Madam Speaker, when you look now at the whole question of recycling, the minister made a statement, ban styrofoam, ban single-use plastic. Now, that is all well and good. It is consistent with the approach that we ought to take. But what has been the consultative process? What has been the consultative process? And I'll come back to that. Because you see, Madam Speaker, the Honorable Member for San Fernando East, when he spoke about a chap named Vijay Mahata. I don't know who Vijay Mahata is, but I recall the debate in which then Independent Senator Rolf Balgobin raised his name. And I did not know who Vijay Mahata is or was. I still don't know. But what I do know, I saw that the independent senator was captive of the beverage container lobby, and therefore there was need to pull back that legislation. I don't know if Vijay Mahatara harassed him in any way. Madam Speaker, so that therefore we went back to the drawing board and we recognized that beverage container was but one stream of waste, and that therefore you ought not to bring legislation for that alone. And as a result of that, Madam Speaker, we went back to the drawing board to come forward. All this being done within the tenure of the People's Partnership Administration. And I want to read a press release of the 19 February 2015. Thursday, 19 February 2015. Cabinet approved the establishment of a Waste Recycling Management Authority. The purpose of the National Waste Recycling Policy is to provide guidance to enable Trinidad and Tobago to establish an appropriate legislative, administrative, and institutional framework for waste reduction and recycling. The National Waste Recycling Policy takes into consideration existing overarching policies such as the National Integrated Waste Management Policy and the National Environmental Policy. Based on this policy, the Ministry will develop a draft waste recycling bill, which is the framework legislation for the establishment of the Waste Recycling Management Authority, and is currently finalizing regulations to treat with the disposal of beverage containers as a priority issue. Regulations to treat with other waste streams will follow. The government has been finalizing the legislative approach and enabling mechanisms for the management of beverage containers and other waste with various stakeholders. So, Madam Speaker, then you will, so that you'll have a series. This is an overarching authority. This was left for this administration. Why has there been no action? No action. That is the way they do it. You know, that is the way they do it. So that therefore you had a framework. You had the streams of waste. You had the regulations in place. This is 2019, the end of 2019. Is it that the lobby from the industry prevents that stream of waste from being acted upon? Is the government captive of the financiers from that sector? These are questions that are legitimate. You see, Madam Speaker, this is what it is, that you had a situation where you will deal with municipal waste, you will deal with hazardous waste, you'll deal with biomedical waste, deal with industrial waste, electronic waste, special bulk rate waste. These are things that you need to put. And when you look at what the opposition leader said in her presentation dealing with the economic transformation of Trinidad and Tobago, you recognize the role that that waste will play in the diversification thrust of the next administration, Madam Speaker. And apparently, I see that the Honorable Minister of Trade is here. Was there any consultation on this process? In the Guardian of Tuesday, yesterday's Guardian, Madam Speaker. And it says, environmentalists, businessmen, TNT not ready for styrofoam foam ban. And they go on to say the lack of consultation, the lack of the transition. And in Barbados, Madam Speaker, you have a problem in that when they add to make the styrofoam biodegradable, it is building up more fluoride in the environment. So that therefore you're jumping from the frying pan into the fire. Madam Speaker, you see, the reality is that you need to do certain things in this country. You need to deal with the kind of waste, because we produce a lot of waste. The statistics for waste generation in Trinidad and Tobago are alarming, Madam Speaker. According to statistics on solid waste generation, the generation rate for garbage for the city of Port of Spain is 1.5 kilograms for an inhabitant per day. Every month we dump 50 million plastic bottles and 1 million glass bottles. That is 600 million plastic bottles and 12 million glass bottles each year. The average person generates 4 pounds or 2.2 kilos of waste per day, which amounts to 1.548 tons of waste reaching waste disposal sites per day. According to SwimCall, the average lifespan for landfill is 20 years. However, most of the waste disposal sites in Trinidad and Tobago have been in operation since the 1960s. The problem is that we generate too much waste, and the waste have to be disposed somewhere, and the landfill sites are the location. When we diversify and when we seek to separate the waste, you can create a business. But you come in the penultimate year of your existence. You come just before the sun sets. You come to tell us about that when this is something that has been happening since 2014 onwards, Madam Speaker. So that therefore, there is very little faith that we have in your capacity to deal with these things, with the waste in this country, Madam Speaker. Very little faith. Madam Speaker, you see, the honorable members on the other side spoke about transformation. Transformation. What are the mechanisms for transformation? When we did the postal reform sector in 1999, together with my good friend and colleague, Emmanuel George, Madam Speaker, it was regarded by the World Bank as a model for small island developing states. Model. But then, under this administration, in a previous incarnation, it went down south. Because you took a department, you corporatized it, you made arrangement with UPS, FedEx, and other grouping for it to become the major courier in the country. When they came in, regime change. Regime change is a real issue for the progressive development of this country, Madam Speaker. Whether it was the Beach High School or the Cuba Hospital, those are landmarks in regime change, stultifying development. Madam Speaker, and I want to make mention of these things because you see, when you go back to Kipchoge and his master class, best in class, announcing to the world that it is possible for the human being to do that 26.2 kilometers in under 2 hours, we have to recognize that we are capable here. In 1999, Madam Speaker, I want to read from a book entitled Modern Groundwater Exploration by Robert A. Bisson and J.H. Lair at page 153. Case study, Tobago, West Indies, 1999 to 2000, unprecedented discoveries in a small island developing state. Spaces technologies incorporating images from satellite orbiting the Earth in a novel public-private sector partnership were used to discover and develop enormous quantities of high-quality groundwater for the island of Tobago. This is the first Caribbean application of these technologies and of this type of partnership, and Tobago's long history of conventional groundwater investigation, failed well drilling attempts combined with a critical 2 million gallon shortfall made it a worst-case island test venue for groundwater discoveries. Nevertheless, the use by the client of a shared risk contracting approach combined with the application by the contractor of novel mega watersheds paradigm and an advanced state-of-the-art exploration program resulted in the identification of 66 million cubic meter a year, 39.8 million gallons per day of previously undetected renewable groundwater resources in the prevailing crystalline bedrock of the island. Madam Speaker, so this was a state of the art. It has found itself into textbooks. But so when the member, the Honorable Minister of Public Utilities speaks, you know what they did to that program? It was a partner between Lennox Petroleum, local company, and Earth Technologies utilizing satellite imaging. And only when they found water of a certain quantity and a certain quality, then the Water and Sewerage Authority entered the game. But when with regime change, Madam Speaker, they shut down that program. Shut it down. And that is why now you have a desalination plant in Tobago because you did not continue this mega watershed, getting pristine quality water. Regime change again, stultifying development. It is, I would not read it, Madam Speaker, but it has also entered the water encyclopedia, groundwater. So when we do things to benchmark in the master class. We do things in such a way that it redounds to the benefit of this country. And I fear that in the current scenario, whilst we talk about everything under the sun, when the dry season comes in 2020, we will have a problem. I would like to find out from the next speaker, what is the dry season management plan of the PNM administration for 2020? What it is you're going to put together? What it is you're going to put together? The knee-jerk reaction in 2010 by the then Patrick Manning administration, God bless his soul, was to build 5 desalination plants. The honorable member will recall that. She was a member of the cabinet then. You know? And previous to that, they said we did not need any, that you could replace the pipeline. So what it is that we are going to do? So, Madam Speaker, so this budget, this and the fiscal measures associated with it, indicate that you have a problem. You must address your mind to the problem. So it is fine that the daily paid are getting their pension. To increase the wages of the CPEP and URP workers, who can fault that? The free zone, the economic zone, there's no fault associated with that. But the details are yet to be seen. We have a situation where the country is in a parlous state with water. Diwali is approaching. The reservoirs are at their lowest level, and the government is silent. Silent. It is as if that they themselves are bereft of a plan. And they are hoping that water will fall from heaven. As not only in the oil and gas sector they're hoping for, they are now hoping for it in the water sector. But I want to warn members opposite. A drought always precedes the removal of the PNM from office. Madam Speaker, much was said about the Honourable Member of the Honourable Minister of Public Utilities with respect to the LED lighting. My colleague dealt with it at length. But what I found interesting, he's indicated that the LED would lead to savings. How much it was? 3 billion? They were? 3 billion in savings. So I said, if LED and the presentation of those bulbs to 400 households will lead to 3 billion in savings, 400,000 households, will lead to 3 billion in savings, then there is no need for TNTech application before the Regulated Industries Commission for a rate increase. No need. No need whatsoever. You can take the savings you get and then apply it. Because that is the kind of LED economics we got from the Minister of Public Utilities. Madam Speaker, so that is the kind of approach that that they are taking, Madam Speaker. How much time I have?
It's 17, your original time.
Madam Speaker, so I have exhausted the utility sector. We have looked at everything that they have done with respect to that area, and we recognize that they're in want in that area. Madam Speaker, I have to say a bit about my constituency, Chaguanas West. You better, if you come by me, you wouldn't get led. Madam Speaker, Chaguanas West is one of the, how can I put it? It is like it is the market provides the environment for the building of entrepreneurs. We have several businesses in Chaguanas in which emerge from sales in the market. So therefore, it provides an incubator for entrepreneurism. But the market has been neglected. I have made representations to the Minister of Local and Rural Development, Local Government and Rural Development, because the market remains electrical fittings that go badly. You have it is leaking, the chiller doesn't work. I have made representation on several occasions, because I myself attend the market 2 or 3 times for the week, Madam Speaker. And therefore, we have a link with the people in the market. So that market needs focused attention in order to bring it up to the role for it to perform as an incubator of business in the area. Then you have the drainage. You have a serious problem with drainage in the Lapai and Frederick settlement and in the Caroni area. There is lack of development in that area by the local government bodies, Madam Speaker, in making sure the Tunapuna Piako Regional Corporation abandon that area. It's abandoned the area. You have in the Akbar Trace area, you have water drainage again, parallel to the highway, under the Ministry of Works. No cleaning of that. And you have a serious problem. Roads, the Warren Road, Monroe Road, you have serious potholes. You have Madras Road, which lies in the constituency of my colleague, which is part of the thoroughfare. Serious potholes, serious degradation as a result of the flooding. You have unemployment, Madam Speaker. People come to you for jobs. The local government body employed 81 persons. I don't know what is the nature of the collective agreement with the union, but certainly people from within our area did not get employment. My colleagues, Ramona Ramdayal and Karani Tim Gopi Singh and Bo Tiwari can attest to that. So that we make recommendations, but there's nothing happening. We have a real problem also with mosquito invasion and rats in the area. You know, rats in the area. We share the boundaries with my colleagues, the member for Chaguanas East. And it's the same kind of problem that we experience. So that you have that kind of, there's need for vermin control in the area. Madam Speaker, and housing. Serious housing issues. Serious housing issues. And there's need for, I noticed that there's a development in Kunupia. We hope that the people from the area will get a fair opportunity to get access to housing. So, Madam Speaker, with this kind of approach, the Chaguanas still remains the hub. Diwali Nagar, Diwali Festival, you have so many expos and entrepreneurism taking place. It is a period in which there is so much economic activity, but yet you have shortage of water for the basic hygiene. So, Madam Speaker, I am hoping that with this local government elections, that we have an approach that they will be releasing some monies into the Chaguanas Borough to deal with the problems that we have experienced in that area. Madam Speaker, when you look at the approach of the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Finance has taken an approach. Year one, punish. Impose the taxes, increase fuel price. Year two, continue it. More punishment. Year three, continue it, more punishment. So punish, 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 and in his inimitable style, 3 times I raise it, and they ain't riot yet. So punish, punish, punish. In this year, there appears to be a level of pacification. He says to you now, come unto me, my children. You know, I have abused you for 3 years. But this year, I'm giving you a little kakada. And I'm planting the hope, because I have another budget coming in 2020. and then I will open these spigots for you. And you have to run and by his side. But the precondition is vote for me in the local elections of the December the 2nd. Madam Speaker, let me tell you, this is a country in which people are very discerning.
Member for Shogunas West, your original speaking time is now spent. You're entitled to 10 more minutes to wrap up if you wish to avail yourself.
Thank you, Madam
Please
Speaker.
continue.
Thank you. So we are people who are very discerning, and they recognize that reality. And when they look at the National Economic Transformation Plan presented by the leader of the opposition, Madam Speaker, it is clear that a change is going to take place. The Honourable Member for Toko Sande Grande said, Sam Cook sang a song. Sam Cook sang a song. Change is coming. Well, change is going to come. Gonna come, all right. Change is coming. It is clear that in this election campaign coming, change is going to come, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Much. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and it's always a pleasure and an honor to be in the lower house and to be given an opportunity to speak a second time, a first and a second time in the Senate on this debate. I must start with thanking the Minister of Finance, who brought us a very inspiring and insightful budget, and of course also his staff, the Director of Budgets and the members of staff of the Ministry of Finance, who continue to do considerable work to help this country to be where it now is. Also, the Honourable Minister of Planning and Development. Her contribution to the development of the country's budget is also impactful, and we thank her. I'm not going to speak about the macroeconomic fundamentals, because I do believe my colleagues would have done so. But here we are in 2019 in a place where all of the major leading economic indicators have improved, and this is under the stewardship of the Honourable Keith Christopher Rowley and your PNM government. So that economic growth has returned, revenue and savings have increased, government expenditure has been reduced and is now sustainable, government fiscal deficit has also reduced, and inflation is among the lowest in the world at #1 on the Global Competitive Index, along with some other countries. But before I go into my presentation, let me just respond to a few matters which were raised by the member for Shogunas West. And you spoke about the Port of Spain flood alleviation program, and that, and I want to get the facts clear to the population that under the UNC, there was a loan that was approved, and it is indeed, it was under the MP for Shogunas West. So you spent considerable funds. I think the project would have been with WSP, and which is formerly Geneva. When we came into office, now the sums of money that you expended were really from an IDB loan. But when we came into office and we approached the IDB, the study which you spent millions on was rejected. $100 million. And it was rejected. And don't even think about asking me to give way. You're not given. The experts from the IDB said that the experts from the IDB said that the study was useless and it will not solve the problem.
That's right.
It was a failed study, right? And therefore, we had to cancel the IDB loan because there was nothing to work with. Typical of the UNC. Failed project. Let me tell you again, you also misled the Parliament with respect to the unemployment relief program. You said that Indar Parasam was fired. That is not so. What it is you're looking for, a songbite? That was not so. Indar Parasram is still the national program manager for the URP. Sorry, I'm so sorry, Madam Speaker.
Thank you so much for the help, but I tried to be a little more gracious, and I hope you'll mimic that. Minister, please remember you're directing here. It's not personal to your friend. Okay, please.
Madam Speaker, never personal. But let me just repeat that Indar Parasram is still employed by the Unemployment Relief Program as a very successful program manager for the URP. He has not been fired. He has not been reassigned. Again, usual. Same thing like Toko Manzanilla. But Kumuta Manzanilla, I'm not going there. The beverage container bill, the reason it is where it is because maybe you all were captured, no attention was given to it. It's now before the Legislative Review Committee. It is being dealt with. There has been tremendous consultation. This government or no member of this government has been captured. There's been extensive consultation and it will be dealt with, and more than likely the legislation will be brought before the cabinet before the end of the month. Now, there was something else you talked about, and I wanted to speak to. I know you went talking about water, and so on. I know you were Mr. Water for All, but you didn't talk about the beef. By the year 2000. But you didn't talk about the Beef and Wastewater Project. You won't talk about that, which remains a white elephant. Millions of public... $1 billion of taxpayers' money expended, and that project was fraught with corruption. But, Madam Speaker, I have a lot to talk about the Ministry of Trade and Industry, and let me press on with that. I'll not spend any more time on the member for Chaguanas West, who obviously didn't have much to say. He didn't even utilize the time that was allotted to him.
Couldn't he make it?
Right. Now, and I'm not going to be political, I'm now going to talk about the whole question of the ease of doing business, because much was said yesterday by the member for Tabaquite, and I appreciate the concerns that were raised. As a matter of fact, 2 weeks ago, I went to the population, and the reason I did that is to lay before the population the extensive work which is being done not only by the Ministry of Trade and Industry, but several ministries and agencies across the board. It took perhaps more than an hour to be very open as to where we are. But I will give a little mini version of it for the sake of this House. And perhaps, let me correct, the member for Tabaquite said that we're down 40 spaces. That is not so. That is an untruth. In 2015, when you left office, you were at 79th in the world, not 60th or anything like that. You were 79th in the world out of 189 economies. And during that time, 2015, 2016, the World Bank changed their methodologies. And immediately, we went down to 88 in the world. So that's not because of doing something or not doing something. The methodologies changed. And you just found yourself at 88th in the world. So that almost was our starting point. And where we are, and we have to acknowledge where we are 17 points below now. Now, the member for Couva South, please. Now, and let me speak to the genesis of this, of these reforms and all of these doing business indicators and so on. And it is Dr. Lenny Safe, then a senator, who was responsible for the genesis of this single electronic window platform, better known as TT BizLink. And he would have traveled to Singapore and held extensive consultations, and this is where it started. So in 2009, in the Ministry of Trade and Industry, we began to develop this single electronic window platform, as I said, known as TT BizLink. And as it is, TT BizLink has been a success story, and it connects with something like 24 government ministries and agencies. And now there are 47 e-services that are available to the public. So I said it is a success, but it's not enough. Coming into office, we recognize, and I still have to give some credit to the last UNC administration, at least they continue the work which we started in 2009. So that brings us to where we are with 47 e-services. But really, at a time when you had a lot of money, you should have attempted to deal with the larger items which would make a difference. And I'm talking about indicators such as trading across borders, registering property, dealing with construction permits, and so on. That's perhaps where we should have gone during that 5-year period. But we didn't. They did some work, but didn't attack the big ticket items. And it falls on us now to do just that. So in 2016, we did in fact enter into another loan arrangement with the IDB, and this time for $25 million, a loan, $25 million US, a loan over a 5-year period, and to deal with these big ticket items and to further strengthen and to expand TT BizLink. And I'll tell you, so that the project objectives were, one, to simplify the trade processes and the business processes. We want to reduce the time and cost it takes to import and export, and also to improve the domestic interoperability, and that is among all of the agencies that are involved in the import and export of business, and also to modernize the governance and institutional and legislative arrangements. So it's an extensive project, and thus far, we really have advanced the procurement process for more than 23 major consultancies. Some of them done, but the 6 major consultancies are still ongoing. I will tell you that even though we contracted that loan in 2016, it fell to us now to develop the unit, and so that persons had to be hired, and then we went to the phase of deciding on which ones we would attend to, which indicators. And of course, it involved engaging with foreign contractors, foreign consultants, and therefore we had to ensure that we went through the very rigorous IDB process and the CTB processes as well. And there was no way that we were going to avoid that. So here we are, and I want to go to perhaps directly to one of the major reforms, which is trading across borders, where we have not been effective. In fact, we ranked last at 130 out of 190. You didn't deal with it, but it fell to us to deal with it. And that largely, again, is about improving our trade performance, import and export, and about our trade, ultimately about our international competitiveness. So we went ahead, and one of the first things we did under trading across borders was to develop something called a multimodal logistics gap analysis. So that involves consultations with several of the border agencies and ministries involved in that, in all of the logistical arrangements. After that analysis was done, we then moved on and we engaged a well-known research firm, Ecoris UK Limited, to come up with a plan to deal with all the necessary business process re-engineering that just must be done if it is we are going to improve under trading across borders, and if we are going to improve the cost and time of doing business, and also the cost of doing business, and also our whole competitiveness. And I want to tell you, and I'm just showing you here, this is what it is. This BPR master plan that we finally have in our hands, and this is after doing the gap analysis, this is what it is. It is in fact a 400-page document outlining the 58 procedures that must be done. It's so substantial. 58 procedures which must be done, and involving 12 agencies and so on. And 25 of these recommendations are in fact recommendations which must be given high priority. So we've done the work. We know what we have to do. We went to the cabinet, and it's full speed ahead to implement the first 25 priority items, and then the others. And that, just to say that business process re-engineering master plan involves a number of serious areas. Number one, implementing an integrated risk management system, which I will speak to. That is the business largely of customs. It involves eliminating the redundant steps for approving import and export permits. It involves undertaking an audit to ensure the most efficient use of the scanners of the ports. Yes, we have them, but we want to make sure that we have the most efficient use of the scanners. It involves implementing transparent and published standard operating procedures within all of the main border agencies. And of course, it involves implementing online payments for all single electronic window services and so on. And we have targeted to implement all of these major reforms coming out of the master plan within 9 months. So that we are very focused, the staff of the Ministry of Trade and Industry, in particular the single electronic window division unit. They are here listening to me. I commend them for the tremendous work that has been done. The members of the policy division are also here, a group of bright young people, and they have stuck to the process and the project. And together we will work with the other ministries to get these projects done. Involved again with that, improving how we trade across borders, is another project called a port community system, which we will be going to the cabinet with. And that port community system speaks to the interoperability between all of the border agencies. Again, so that everyone will be on the same platform. So you're talking about connecting the single electronic window people with the border system, the Assecutor system for the for customs, the terminal operating systems for Navis as well. So the advantage is to put in place that effective connectivity and collaboration between all of the activities and improve the supply chain, ensuring at the end of the day we are delivering cargo to and from our country, reducing time, reducing cost. So it's quite a massive project. And I speak a little bit now about the risk management system, which has to be put in place as well, which has to be improved. There is a risk management component under customs system, which is the Assecutor. Customs has taken, I know the Minister of Finance brought a note to Cabinet, so Customs is improving their Assecutor system to an Assecutor 4.0 system, which will allow them to make better risk-based decisions based on the day-to-day operations. The ministry is working closely with Customs and Excise Division to further complement their Assecutor risk management system. So what we will be doing is using a complementary advanced automated risk management system. It's all about very sophisticated software. And we would be merging the two to ensure that we improve this integrated risk management system. And whilst I speak about these big things, I make the point again that we are doing small things. For instance, in the trade licenses unit, which runs very well, I can tell you if you want a license to bring something in or to export, a used car dealer wants a license, you can get your license approved in perhaps half an hour. And that's the reality of it. But we're still improving, and I can tell you that we have digitized all of the records of the trade licenses unit, and we are, in fact, modernizing the entire unit to make sure that it is best in class. We heard that touted here today, but that work is ongoing. But going back to some of the big ticket items, dealing with construction permits, again, not tackled under the last administration, but I'm not going to fault them for that. We are doing the work. And I really must compliment the Minister of Planning and her units, especially, in particular, the Town and Country Division, for the work that they're doing to transform the Town and Country Planning Division and put us in a place where certainly this ranking will be improved. It is as 125 out of 190, and I can tell you by next year, you will see an improvement because we will have a rollout of this automated construction permitting system by November of this year, with a national rollout to follow thereafter, the pilot being in Port of Spain. Now, we would have rolled out perhaps in September, but we took the extra time to include the reforms that are being done At the same time, under the local government, because as you know, the regional corporations are an integral part in terms of the construction permitting process. So we are far advanced with that. We are using Crimson Logic of Singapore to help us through this. Singapore. The Town and Country Planning Division, meanwhile, and this is under. Meanwhile, they are doing a comprehensive update on all of the MAT land use policies, and they are going to make public new spatial planning guidelines and policies, and that is another project under the single electronic window that we are doing. So that will allow developers and the business community to make informed decisions as to what land use is allowed and what is suited for a particular plot of land, and to reduce the incidence of applications being rejected. So you will soon have these new spatial planning guidelines. Also, another sub-project under the SEW is the digitization of all of town and country planning records. And you can just imagine the enormity of that task, the number of maps and other pieces of information which that department holds. It's going to be all digitized, and it's all electronic, the very same way that our cabinet is now totally electronic. We operate now with an e-cabinet system. So another area is where we are not doing so badly on, but still we are seeking to improve it, is the area of getting credit, where we are ranked 60 out of 190 in the world. And we would have talked about this development of the legal framework for the secured transactions and implementation of an electronic collateral registry system. What that means, and it really is going to be very helpful to the small and medium-sized businesses, we are going to implement the secured collateral transactions regime where movable property, and I'm talking about your receivables, your goods in hand, and so on, can be used as security as against what most banks require, immovable property, and I'm talking about land and so on. So what we've done, policy being approved, we went through the process, the tendering process. So we have with us, and I don't know if he's still here, but he certainly came here in September, Mr. Spiridon Bazidas, and he is a person, he's very well known. He was involved in the drafting of the UN Commission on United Trade Law, the legislative guide for the very same secured transactions. And his work is to help us to prepare the legal framework for this secured transactions. And we expect this to be done before 2020. Another project that I want to mention, and it's impossible for me to speak to all of the reforms, is the question of the payment of taxes. And indeed, I want to say that the Inland Revenue Division have made some strides under the payment of taxes, so the paying taxes. But it has to be built out even further. So we do, in fact, have from August 2017 what is an e-tax system, so that you can apply, you can pay your taxes online and so on. That was done in 2017. And of course, so overall there are improved taxpayer services. But we need to go much further into, and I'm speaking about the implementation of an electronic funds transfer framework, which is an EFT policy. It's called an e-payments. That too is one of the large ticket items that's being done. So that under the SEW loan, that electronic funds transfer framework has been developed, the policy framework, and that has been given to the Treasury Division, and this work is being done under the Ministry of Finance. This reform will introduce electronic payments throughout government ministries and agencies in the near future. There are some agencies, the judiciary, for instance, is able to accept maintenance payments electronically, but we are talking about payments into the consolidated fund, and that's a different thing. So we wait for the ministerial instructions on that. And I can tell you that even Trinidad and Tobago Bureau of Standards, which falls under the Ministry of Trade and Industry, will also soon begin to accept electronic payments from customers for goods payment. I could still say that, I'll mention, they're starting a business. Again, we are ranked starting a business 76 out of 190, but that is going to improve. The Registrar General's Department under the Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs has worked continually on providing an efficient environment for individuals and businesses applying for related documents. And so that they have, in fact, allowed applications for business name registrations and company incorporation. So you can do those things electronically. But what they are developing now is an online system for the company's registry. And that, too, will be done, I would think, within a matter of 6 months, because the consultant is already on board. So that I can see us being in a much more favorable position in a matter of 6 months to 9 months. And I don't think it's necessary for me to go any further on the ease of doing business, but just to guarantee and give the public the assurance that we are very focused. The single electronic window unit in the Ministry of Trade and Industry under my guidance, and also all of the related ministries that are connected, Ministry of Planning and Development, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of the Attorney General and Legal Affairs, all working to ensure that we provide a better space for doing business in Trinidad and Tobago. I want to speak just a little bit on food prices. Of course, we would have spoken about headline inflation, where we are, and the fact that we share the #1 spot on the Global Competitive Index. But the leader of the opposition indicated in this House that food prices increased from September 2015 by about 14%. And she was very clever, rather disingenuous, not to account for the price increases which occurred under their administration. And I want to, in doing so, before I speak to the public, I will say to you that you could just go to the central bank report. That food price inflation, according to the central bank in 2018, the rate of food inflation stood only at 1%. And this fits well and corroborates with where we are with headline inflation. 1%, and this is compared with an average percentage increase of 11.38% for the period 2011 to 2015. 1% as compared to 11% on an average, right? And so thus far, for January to May 2019, I can tell you what the increase on food prices has been. Very negligible at 0.2%. 0.2%. But remember for Superior should really have accounted for the large increases under her tenure and done the full comparison. But I will tell you just about a few, I'll speak to just a few items. Right, I'm speaking to the population. And I can tell you, for instance, that whole chicken from a pluck shop increased by 15% under that government, and 15%, and under us, 3%. Pork stew pork, which Trinidadians like, increased under them by 29%. Under us, the price went down by 3%. Beef stew beef, who don't like a stew beef, increased by 32% under them, and under us, under the UNC, under us, 3%. Pigtail, 12% under them, 3% under us. Corned beef, 24% under them, under us, 1%. Consistent with the inflation, food inflation. Saltfish, 19% under the last UNC administration, 1% under us. Eggs increased 51% under that last administration. Under us, the price decreased by 8%. Instant chocolate increased 30% under them. Under us, 2%. Orange juice increase under them 16%. Under us, 3%. Taking the
Members,
time to
please,
talk
please.
about it. Mobby, with every Trinidadian likes, increase 20% under them and 2% under us. Flour, 6% under them, 1% under us. Cornflakes, every little child like cornflakes in the morning. 40, including the Minister of Planning's children, 41% increase under that administration. The price has gone down under us by 5%. Black eyed peas, I like black eyed peas and rice. Increase under them 28%. Under us, the price remained the same. No increases at all. Curry powder, 23% increase under them. The price decreased under us by 1%. Curry powder. I can't go on like this, you know. Okay, garlic. Garlic increased under them 9%. Under us, it went down by 38%. 13. Sugar. Oh Lord. Infant formula. Increase under them 84%. A whopping 84%. Under us, 7%. I mean, soap powder under them, 20%. Under us, it went down by 23%. Some members was very disingenuous, and I want to tell you.
What about rum?
No, they want me to talk about vodka.
Okay.
Sorry, Madam Speaker.
Please continue, please.
And I want to also.
Just now. Let's have some order. Minister of Trade and Industry.
And I want to say also, Madam Speaker, that despite the straitened circumstances of our government from 2015 to now, between 2016 and 2018, I just looked at those figures, we were still able to renew the waivers of the common external tariff on a number of products to the extent of $584 million, and that was to assist households and so on. So the revenue foregone for the government, despite our circumstances, we still forego $584 million to ensure that food was reasonably priced, and medication, in fact, pharmaceuticals, we forego $344 million to keep the prices of medication affordable. And the other thing raised by the leader of the opposition was the whole matter of business confidence. And I'll come to trade, member for mayor, because I know you talked about that. Business confidence. So, of course, we got a misinformed view from the leader of the opposition. So contrary, I want to tell you that business confidence is quite strong, consumer confidence is strong and quite buoyant, and there is compelling evidence to prove this. Moody's in June 2019 would have indicated that both business and consumer confidence are improving. According to the central bank, private sector credit expanded from $51 billion to $59.57 billion, an increase of 14.5%. That tells you that the private sector is borrowing. They would not have been borrowing if they had not been doing well and if they didn't have confidence in this government and the ability to manage this economy. There were also a number of public offerings which were very successful, including the NIF, the additional IPO for FCB, and the Trinidad and Tobago National Gas Company Limited, all oversubscribed by the citizens of this country who believe that this government and this country, they believe in us and believe in the successful management of our economy. So that I want to say, despite all that you have said, and despite our oblique circumstances, and despite the fact that investments worldwide have reduced, there has been an increase in the level of investments in Trinidad and Tobago by the private sector. So there's been, even while we fix the ease of doing business, the Minister for Planning and Development has a complex approval system for complex projects. In the Ministry of Trade and Industry, I, in fact, also manage a special approval committee, which is to facilitate investments. InvestTT is doing their work. Fledgling as they were before, they are improving, and they are doing their work to facilitate investments. And there's also a private sector committee under Christian Mute, and they too are doing their work to ensure that we facilitate investments. So if I look only at 2019, we would have facilitated $477 million on the non-energy side in projects, creating 368 jobs. But I will give you the full picture of the kinds of investments that we have, and that is just in order to save time. So that from fiscal 2016 to fiscal 2019, we would have had a total of $4.7 billion in projects completed. And that is projects that we are tracking. There are also other projects going on by the private sector that we will not be aware of, but through our monitoring systems, we know that we would have had close to $5 billion in private sector investments, employing about 1,500 persons. And these are actuals. We have in place as well in the pipeline for 2020 and 2021, another $3 billion in projects with proposed employment of 1,653 persons. So that there have been some significant investments, despite all that you're trying to put out there, significant investments. And I will just speak to a few. For instance, when we came in, Transocean had their drill ships sitting outside the Gulf, sitting in the Gulf. We developed the coal stacking policy, and what we did is we put in place the contract arrangements, reasonable contract arrangements that will benefit the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and that ended up being a $1.2 billion investment in the maritime sector. Peterson Logistics has won contracts and will spend close to $10 million providing logistical solutions as well. Carib Glass in the manufacturing sector installed a new furnace. Prime Minister would have been there to commission the furnace, $200 million, providing 60 jobs. ICOR would have come into you, but after they came to Trinidad, we got them to invest a further $22 million, providing a further 600 new jobs in terms of services. And that is through their call center in Barataria. Vemco would have developed a new pasta line, $40 million. Amcor, an FDI, came in from Australia, and they are involved in the plastics business. They invested $100 million. Cemex, out of Mexico, again, with regard to the manufacturing of cement, they increased their shareholding in TCL, and their investment then was more than $500 million. Extra Foods, I mean, if you drive down, if you only drive down to Chaguanas, most of you are from South, Extra Foods constructed a state-of-the-art grocery and shopping area in Chaguanas, $70 million. And I could go on and on, shall I? $70 million. Pennywise, you would see that Pennywise. In fact, in Laramie in 2016, they developed an entire mall there, $70 million. And if you look now, again in Chaguanas, they are spending another $60 million or so on a new Pennywise Plaza, and this is an endeavor. And of course, you had a number of agencies coming in from abroad. The Regis would have come in to invest in office space. Regis is out of Belgium. Grant Thornton would have entered our economic space as well with accounting services. BHP Billiton would have started a BPO accounting service project. We talked about Domus Windows and Doors, in the manufacturing of windows and doors. They were trying to come in under the last UNC government. They They tried very hard, and not for nothing could the Ministry of Trade then facilitated them. We facilitated them, and that manufacturer of windows and doors is now providing 30 jobs, and it was an investment of $50 million. LTL manufacturing, the manufacturing of automotive batteries, that started under this government and finished under this government, $35 million, creating 27 jobs, entering 12 markets within the CARICOM and in Central America as well. Advanced foam with the manufacture of high-quality pillows. Creamery Novelties, the Hadco Group, traditional importers. They manufacturing ice cream and now exporting $18 million, creating 20 jobs as well. And there are a number of other projects that are going on. Some of them I wouldn't want to call the names, but one of them I want to speak about is a traditional importer, maybe importing for the last 40, 50 years. And they have presented their proposal, and ETEC is working with them. They are going to be spending more than $600 million developing 5 manufacturing plants. And this is going to be done in the Factory Road Estate area. So there are a number of other I would have liked to speak to more, but I don't have the time. But certainly we have China, a company from China, a company called Bosai, investing in the maritime sector in transshipment operations. They have hired 25 persons, and they've invested $10 million. And there are a number of other businesses, Nestle, Prestige, who have expended increased funds to expand their business and improve and automate their business processes as well. But as I said to you, major projects completed under us and in the pipeline process as well. I want to speak, before I go to trade, I want to speak just very briefly about special economic zones. Why? Because the Minister of Finance would have addressed it in the budget, but also the MP for Superior, all of a sudden, in her UNC Grand Master Plan for Economic Transformation, which we find to be quite impractical and illogical, and just to be a hodgepodge of ideas, all of a sudden they have forgotten what they talked about before. Before they spoke about growth poles and the 4 Cs. These growth poles were supposed to be in East Port of Spain and the North Coast, and so on, Southwest Peninsula, talking about Point Fortin, Northeast Tobago, and so on. Nothing. The reality is not one of those growth poles have been developed under you. And Caroni Central, I'm calling you out because you spoke about the development of these 4 Cs, Couva and Chaguanas and Charleville and Carapachaima. We are the ones who developed Couva with the Point Lisas Industrial Estate. We did it. But all of a sudden, I notice you have spun the story and you're now talking about zones. And it is because this government has approved a special economic zones policy. It is on the ministry's website. Perhaps one of your people read it, and all of a sudden, you're now talking about Chaguaramas Development Zone and solar park in Tamina. Where are you going with that? Nowhere. So I'll tell you what happened. And under them, that same solar park story, they spent $14 million. They gave a project to SciTech, right? A private sector entity. You gave them $14 million to come up with this feasibility study for a solar park. What did we get for the report? $14 million? A report. That is it. $14 million for a report, just like the work that you all did that Chaguanas West was talking about, which the IDB could not use. Nothing came out of it. And on top of that, you're talking about a solar park in Tamina. When you came in, you completely stopped the Tamina project. You stopped the UTT Park because you didn't, the UTT University, which was going to focus on technology, not understanding, of course, the correlation between the both and what we were doing in terms of developing technology and ICTs and so on, not recognizing that, and now you come in to talk about Tamina Park. When you stopped that project, we lost the momentum. We lost the momentum, and other countries who had gone into ICT and technology arrangements, they picked up on it. So Costa Rica has done very well on it. And the thing is, you had top dollar. You had increased revenues. That's when you should have focused on Tamina and Tech Park. We came in fact, You built not one park when you were in office. That's not one, and that's a fact. So all of these changed strategies now from growth poles to zones. It's really on account of the policy position that we have put in. It's only our government who has had a track record of creating these transformative economic spaces that will benefit the business community and by extension create jobs that definitely benefit the wider public. So in addition to the world-class estate Point Lisas, we would have built across Trinidad and Tobago 19 industrial parks. 19. And even when we came in, we did the first phase of Tamina Intech Park. With the little money that we had, the first phase of Tamina Park, we finished the Point Fortin Park. We handed out leases for the Debe Park because you didn't do anything at all. That's the work we did. Now you're saying and at this stage, we are divesting, Minister of Finance would have spoken to that, we are divesting certain lands to the private sector so that they can, in fact, improve and adopt and develop their own lands for economic purposes as well. So that concerns the Presal Estate and Reform Connector Road and Frederick Settlement and so on. So again, that SEZ policy is really going to be transformative. We are excited about it. The legislation is before the Attorney General this time, and in fact will be completed by December 31st. It will replace and repeal the free zones legislation, which we found to be unsuccessful and which the Global Forum and the OECD found to be potentially harmful. And you know they're keeping a close eye on that. So this transformed policy, this new and improved SEZ policy, the objectives are to improve the country's revenue base, to attract local and foreign investment, to diversify and increase exports, and to increase private sector participation. And whereas before, the free zones would have been focused only on the free ports and what we know as the traditional free trade zones, in addition to that, there will be specific incentives applied also to industrial parks.
Your original speaking time is now spent. You have 10 more minutes to wind up.
Thank you. Yeah, these industrial parks, specialized zones which aims and allows for sector development in designated activities. It speaks to all of our diversification aspirations. And so it speaks to manufacturing, that specialized zone, maritime services, fish and fish processing, agriculture and agro-processing, and so on. We'll speak more about it. There's also what is called a development zone. So when you're talking, that's when you're talking about Cedrus and Moruga and so on, that is what it is about. You maybe didn't get it right, but that is the development zone where specific incentives will be attached to develop particular geographic regions, particularly in the outlying districts and so on. And there's what is called the single zone enterprises. For any firm engaging in the particular activities you spoke about, but investing substantially in the country. So at the end of the day, I can't detail for you the incentive framework simply because it's at the level of the LRC. And when you're tweaking, it's where you would find that you want to shift some things. So what is going to happen there is for some of the zones, there'll be a reduction in the corporate income tax. There'll be allowances and credits that would seek to encourage investment and reinvestment, compliance with the whole regime, the new SEZ regime, and also to encourage research and development, and so on. So ideally, it will be, all these incentives would apply to Tamina, right, and to Moruga, and to our Phoenix Park Industrial Estate. So somebody said on that side, we spoke about the Phoenix Park Estate, and we did nothing about it. But when we spoke about it the last time, we were just at the stage of identifying projects, right, of identifying the particular project. What we have done in the last year is that we've completed all of the approvals. We've signed a commercial agreement. We have completed the contractor's proposals, satisfied all of the FIDIC requirements. We are completing now the loan agreements, the loan negotiations, and so on, and the framework agreements. And this is where we are. As I said before, you never did what you were supposed to do. You engaged BCEG, and you said to this Chinese firm that you will do Endeavour and Reform and Dow Village and Connector Road and Praysal and Factory Road. You left BCEG holding the bag $40 million, which you have never repaid them. And you never did it because you never had the money to do so, because you had spent, it's because of your profligacy that you had spent everything coming into you. You had maxed out your borrowing limit then, frivolous spending, and you were therefore unable to follow through with this project, left the Chinese holding the bag and so on. This project is going to ensure that Trinidad and Tobago remains a gateway to the Americas, and we will be, in fact, a strategic partner in China's Belt and Road Initiative. So this project is well on the way. We should start. I don't have the time. We will start by November. We'll turn this on, and it will be completed in 12 months. Already, I can tell you it will be a state-of-the-art park with all kinds of fancy LED again and solar-type lighting systems, underground utilities, facial recognition, and so on. So and already tied to that contract is the fact that we will get 10 Chinese investors into the park, and already through InvestTT and through BCEG, we are engaged. There are a number of manufacturers and assembly entities that have shown interest, and they are interested in, I'm not going to call their names, but air conditioners, the manufacture and assembly of air conditioners, automobiles, industrial machinery, medical devices, building materials, power transmission, and so on. So again, you said we don't complete things, but let me tell you, Maruga will be commissioned. The Maruga in the agro-processing park and light industrial park will be commissioned before the end of the year. It's more than 75% complete. You know, Dr. Roger Hussein commended us for that project. He said that we should have these processing parks across all of Trinidad and Tobago. So thank you, Dr. Hussein, for once. Right? So there are a number of stakeholders involved. We meet with them, ICA, NAMDEVCO, Ministry of Agriculture, and so on. We're engaging with the farmers, and we are going to do whatever it takes to help improve the lives of farmers, to move them from primary production to processing, and of course to improve the value added and earnings and prepare them for even exports and so on. We are going to again continue the engagement with the farmers and people involved in hydroponics and rice production and so on. Member for Mayaro, I assure you that when I speak in the Senate, I will speak fulsomely to the matter of trade. But you raised the question of why are we looking at trading with the Latin American countries? I understand that's a point you raised, that we should focus on CARICOM. Why is it so low? No, you clarify after. But what I'm saying is, I don't have much time, I'm sorry. But what I'm saying, and I will speak to the trade policy that we have developed, and having done this and I want to thank publicly again UNECLAC for the work and the close collaboration. They are the ones who did all of the econometrics involving the statistics and so on. All of the empirical analysis would have been done by them. We worked very closely, and we did more than 30 consultations. And this would really take Trinidad forward, certainly into and you will understand where we're going with trade. I will speak comprehensively. But you said these small numbers. Now, the major markets that we have come down to is the CARICOM market. We are going to continue working with the CARICOM market and the wider Caribbean countries. We are also going to focus on Latin America, and also I'm talking about South and Central America, also the Asian countries. And we're talking about both energy trade and non-energy trade. And I'll tell you, when I looked at the figures, for instance, I really don't have the time, and I'll speak comprehensively later on about it. When I looked at the figures and our engagement with the Asia-Pacific region, 10% in 2017, 10% of our exports, 10% of our exports as energy and non-energy would have gone to that region. So it tells you the importance of that region. And when you look at the Mercosur markets, which are Brazil and Argentina, Paraguay, Uruguay and Venezuela, exports to all of those countries would have grown from 5.5% to 17%. So when you talk about the countries that we are now engaged in, El Salvador, Cuba, Colombia, Panama, Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic, the evidence is there. So even though it's small, the evidence is there. I said, and especially having done the analysis, these are the markets to focus on in addition to the wider Caribbean area. And I can tell you, our exports to Cuba, and I'll call the numbers, they may seem small to you, but it's a big difference. There has been a 143% increase in our exports to Cuba, and that is from January, July 2019, when you compare it with January, July 2018. From $11 million to now $27 million. So it is in fact increasing. And when I look at Panama, from 33 million to 67 million, 103% increase. Colombia, from 10 million to 20 million. So small as they are, the engagement has been done by me as minister because the agreements are in place through CARICOM and also bilaterally. These are the markets to focus on in addition. So we are continuing to focus on Jamaica, on Barbados, on Guyana. These are our important CARICOM trading partners. And you must remember that Trinidad and Tobago, small as we are a trading nation. So when you compare our trade to GDP, it's about 132%, and that is using UN statistics, which is more comprehensive than the statistics that we use here because it doesn't capture all of the services data. So using all of that, it tells you that we are a trading, and we must focus on export growth if we are to, in fact, transform the economy. So the work, member for Mayaro, is important, and I will expand on it when I go down to the lower house. We will continue working with the Senate. We will continue working with the TTMA and the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber. And I can say to you that we will continue to have all of these businesses involved, continue doing to the business-to-business meetings, and at the end of the day, we'll have key success. Another key part of this trade, and that we don't talk about, is the trade in services. Because whilst trade in services contributes substantially to our GDP, close to 60%, to 60%, we only export 10% of our services. So when we're talking about diversification and tourism and all of these other areas, 10% of our services are exported. That is an area for growth, and I will expand again on that area. Madam, I see you're standing. I respect you. It means I have to sit down. I would have liked to close a little more politically. I don't have the time, but I'll deal with them in the Senate. I thank you so much.
Member for Carneys. Central.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I must say that I found the contribution by the Minister for Trade and Industry quite entertaining. And I was also a little amused by her presentation. She spent some time on the ease of doing business, and I just want to remind her, that she came here last year, if I'm not mistaken, and indicated to us that she would bring it down in the next round. But what has happened is that it has moved from 66 in 2014 to 79. I'll show you how I understand just now. Then the 2016, 79, 2018, 102, and 2019, 105. Now, she did mention that the methodology had changed, Madam Speaker. And the methodology had changed because they started to include new things for assessment, such as ownership rights and involvement of women in business. But despite those changes in methodology, the other things remain the same, and I will show you what they are and where they moved in a few minutes. And you can find all of this on doingbusiness.org. But the main point I'm making is that she promised to bring it down last year, and it has gone up. The minister, sorry. The minister also told us that she would bring the corruption index down to, last year. But I think it has gone up by 6 points to 78. I do want to give a quote which address one of the issues that the minister mentioned in refuting part of the presentation of my colleague from Chaguanas, Chaguanas West. All right, and it comes as from a quotation from Roquio Medina Bolivar, IDB Group Country Representative for Trinidad and Tobago, on that study that was undertaken and that loan that was taken in 2013 that my colleague mentioned. And this is the quotation from Mr. Bolivar. He says, in December 2013, the IDB's Board of Directors approved a $120 million loan to fund a flood alleviation and drainage program for the city of Port of Spain, as requested by the government of Trinidad and Tobago. The loan was subsequently cancelled in 2017 after it was determined that further design work was needed in order to implement the project. And I emphasize the last sentence here: no money was ever paid out under the loan. So the minister also indicated that, under their tenure, everything improved. If you hear that story, and you weren't living in Trinidad and you came and you listened, you would be really impressed. So everything improved, but let me give you an idea using just the ease of business issue. The ease of business rank went from 66 to 105, as I said, from 2014 to 2019. The starting a business rank from 67 to 76, same period. I'm using 2014 and 2019. Dealing with construction permits, 77 to 125. Getting electricity from 10 to 41. Registering property, well, that improved, 178 to 58. Getting credit rank, 28 to 60. Protecting minority investors from 22 to 57. Paying taxes, she mentioned that specifically, 97 to 166. Trading across borders from 73 to 130. Enforcing contracts remain the same, 174 to 174. So, Madam Speaker, when you take the claims made by the minister and you deal with the reality of the numbers between 2014 and 2019, there is really, no validity to the claims of the minister. And the minister talked about how the prices of food were high in our time and how the inflation is so low. I just want to mention a couple of things. I mean this in the best way, some of the food that she's talking about, some of these people have lost their jobs. They don't even have wages to purchase the food, whether it is high or low. I want to make that point, first of all. Then there is the additional issue of the fact that one of the reasons for the low inflation rate is because, as after the removal of VAT from all of these items, you would say the inflation was absorbed with the increase of VAT, 12.5% on all of these things. From that point on, you had contraction of the economy as people lost their jobs, businesses closed, confidence waned, etc. And that is why, because of the deflationary effect, you have a low. Anthony Wilson did something in the Express, might have been about a week and a half ago, in which he compared a basket of goods to the equivalent basket 1 year later. And he showed that it had gone up by nearly $70, Madam Speaker. So, I mean, to quote the numbers is one thing, to deal with the realities, the feelings of people, and what they are facing in the marketplace is another issue. And the issue of business and consumer confidence and the increasing borrowings, I just want to make a couple of points, and this is from the Economic Bulletin. The first point I want to make, you see, because this is part of the problem that we have as an opposition in dealing with this government. That they say things that have no validity, no basis in fact, and we then have to manage it. You see, he said, consolidated private sector credit grew at a steady pace over the first 7 months of 2019. And then it says, business lending dipped into negative territory by mid-2019. Lending to consumers registered strong growth throughout 2018 and 2019, reaching so-and-so. It said debt consolidation and the loans were for debt consolidation and refinancing purposes, page 24 of the economic report that I mentioned. And it also says that lending to business declined sharply in the first 7 months of 2019, followed by subdued growth throughout 2018. Madam Speaker, I let the document speak. And I prefer to believe what I read in this document by the central bank than to believe what the minister came here to say. And the minister didn't speak about these things, and I'm going to go on now after I mention these items. But, you know, the Minister of Trade has to take into account the following 7 things to achieve what I know she wants to achieve, which is export growth, export in the manufacturing and services sector, and basically buoyancy in the non-energy sector in Trinidad and Tobago. I know she wants to achieve that, but she has to take into account the following things. The ease of doing business issues, which she said that she is dealing with, the Minister of Trade. The minister has to take charge of the Export Development Company of Trinidad and Tobago. She has to deal with the undercapacity issue of the TTMA. She has to deal with the fact that the Exim Bank, according to the Minister of Finance's own admission here, utilize only $10 million out of the $100 million committed to export growth of the manufacturing sector. She has to pay attention to what Invest TT is doing. Must pay attention also, the minister, to the services loan under the IDB, which is basically languishing. And she must take into account as well the IDB SME network, which was established in 2014 when we had the America's Competitiveness Conference here in Trinidad and Tobago. They set up a network with all the Latin American and Caribbean countries to allow SMEs to address and engage each other. the minister talked about the tremendous investment that she's getting here, and I am happy for the country if she's doing that. I am waiting to see how the people will feel the effects of that in terms of jobs and opportunities, because I am not seeing it. And on the issue of growth polls, I just want to say, you see, when you don't appreciate or understand, or you understand it and you do not want to acknowledge what you understand, I don't know which it is in her case, you won't. The whole concept of growth polls is this, which is that you have a country and you have a macroeconomic strategy for it, which is what most governments focus on and all the multilateral institutions and all the international agencies focus on. But within that country, Trinidad and Tobago, let's use that as the direct example, you have 14 local government corporations and you have 600 communities. Those have been identified by the research work that has been done for this country. And therefore, if you want to have a sub-macro strategy, what you might call a regionally deployed strategy, then you've got to develop strategies that will allow the mini economies of your country to really buttress themselves and develop and evolve. And then when you have a combination of growth at macro level and with growth at several sub-regional levels, you are able to get development, not just from on top, but development from below. And that was related to a whole set of other things. There was a development atlas done for all of Trinidad and Tobago, Madam Speaker. And that development atlas did the demographic profile for all 14 regions of Trinidad and Tobago. So you could tell in each region what was missing in education, what was missing in social infrastructure, etc., in health, in everything. And if you have a decentralization strategy and a devolution plan for local government to give more autonomy to local government, then with decentralization, devolution, a regional atlas focused on 14 regions with 600 communities divided among those regions, you could then have these economic growth poles. And located in that are also the economic zones, which is an aspect, all right, the economic aspect of your growth pole. But the growth pole is not limited to economic zones. Economic zones are a subset of a growth pole. I won't go further than that now. I will leave it at that point. But when you don't understand or you don't want to understand, that is no reason to indicate that the other person is either ignorant or don't know what they're doing. If you don't understand, that's your business. Madam Speaker, it is an honor to say a few words on this fifth budget speech of the Minister of Finance and to address some of the issues in the bill which accompanies it, an act to provide for the service of Trinidad and Tobago for the financial year ending on the 30th day of September 2020. Now, let me say how thrilled I was, Madam Speaker, to listen to and to witness and to listen to the presentation of the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, leader of the United National Congress. She offered a clear plan and a clear direction for Trinidad and Tobago. And more than that, she went further. She invited participation and feedback from citizens, Madam Speaker. This is even more important in a context in which no one understands the priorities of this government at this time. No one knows what the priorities are. And the majority of citizens are worried about their personal lives, the state of the country, and very, very uncertain and scared about their future and the future of Trinidad and Tobago. So I offer my sincere congratulations to the Honorable Leader of the Opposition for providing direction, clarity, and a plan of action. And I also congratulate her, the Leader of the Opposition, for her openness to the views and the contributions of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. I want to commend as well, Madam Speaker, all my colleagues who have spoken so far for their very thoughtful and well-considered contributions. The member for Couva North, the member for Faizabad, the member for Kamuto Manzalina, member for Caroni East, Oropuch West, Barataria Sawa, Tabakit, Mayaro, member for Chaguanas West this morning. All of them made sterling contributions. And at this point, Madam Speaker, I want to establish 5 very clear facts about the UNC partnership government, which governed from 2010 to 2015, and which lost the election, they forget, by a few votes, 20,000, in 2015. Now, whatever the criticisms and the move along, Madam Speaker, the misrepresentations and the outright prevarications coming from the other side, the tenure of the Kamala Prasad Bisesa government of 2010-2015 left the following things as a legacy. First of all, the UNC coalition brought in upwards of $2 billion in investment annually on average for every year of the 5 years that they were in office. The World Investment Report of 2016 confirms the total figure for foreign investment as $10.38 billion over the period. And the report and later reports do not acknowledge, perhaps it did not get the investments that the minister was speaking about. Perhaps it did not get into the books yet because that happens. Sometimes there is a delay. But what they do record is a minus $180 million investment. The second thing that the UNC left when they left in 2015 is that they left the highest GDP ever in our country in 2015, close to $177 billion. The GDP for 2018 is in fact 91% of what it was in 2015. We would have to grow, Madam Speaker, by 9% to get back to where we were in 2015. The highest number of jobs were created during the UNC period in office. And the lowest unemployment rate in the history, 3.3% in a particular quarter in 2014. We created 55,000 jobs, and we left $11.5 billion in the reserves. Now, if you do what the Minister of Finance has done in this budget, which is to add the HSF and the foreign reserves to get the $13 billion that he presents to us, what we would have left in real US dollar money in the accounts in the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago is $17 billion plus US dollars.
That is huge.
Fourthly, the decisions that we made in 2011 and 2014, which ushered in a period of new deep water drilling after a hiatus of almost a decade, Madam Speaker, led to the success of Juniper, Truck, Angeline, etc., which is the only thing, Madam Speaker, and this is a fact. This is the only thing that has saved this country from revenue collapse from the third quarter of 2017 to the present time. And fifthly, public sector debt when we left office was a manageable 76.5 billion in 2015. In 2019, it is 102 billion. It is in the same central bank report, depending on how the transparent and comprehensive one is. It can be much more, and it can get to over $150 billion, Madam Speaker. I want to make those 5 things clear. And all this old talk about fumes and so on, and even when you talk about the central bank overdraft, their overdraft here has increased, one, because they came with legislation to increase the amount that is allowed, and secondly, it stands based on the 2017 report. I don't know if you have to wait on a 2018 report in order to know what it is now from the Auditor General, because I asked the Minister on several occasions, and he will not tell me what the central bank overdraft is. So, summary position, Madam Speaker. We left with 11 months of foreign exchange food import cover for Trinidad and Tobago. We left with the lowest employment ever. We left with the most jobs, 56,000. A sizable GDP, revenue flows and natural gas flows, which began in the third quarter of 2017, and which continues now and continues into the future. We concede that the international energy prices fell in 2014, and there would have been a cash flow challenge for the government. But the government really has nothing to complain about in the way that they complain. What they had to do, having convinced the country that they were able to run the country, was to run the country and to manage it. In 2019 now, the whole framework for the government is this, led by the Minister of Finance in his narrative. They want to blame the past and make promises for the future, when the present that they are presiding over and have presided for the last 4 years is so horrible. And citizens at every level in the country feel so battered and bruised and so hopeless, Madam Speaker. And this government refuses to take responsibility for their failure over the last 4 years, which is why we are in here today. So I want to deal with some of the fiscal measures, some of the self-reporting that the government has done in their documents. I want to deal a little bit with small and medium enterprises. The minister talks about, I want to make some points about that. I want to deal with our debt situation if I have the time. And I certainly want to make the case to the population of Trinidad and Tobago for a very clear choice, which is that if you want the country to continue as it is going, Madam Speaker, if the citizens want that, and taking this precarious road where we are headed for a precipice, as I will show you in a few minutes, they can remain with this government, and all of us will fall with them. But if they want to take a different track and to rescue this country and begin to put in place a set of strategies for recovery and growth and development and sustainability, then they've got to make an electoral choice in Trinidad and Tobago. So the fiscal measures, the $3 million bond at 125, I want to ask the minister, I mean, he knows the facts as well as I do and probably better than me. Is this a realistic resolution of the problem? Because I know he knows that this requires a resolution, and the resolution he puts forward, is it a realistic resolution? And the reason I ask is this. The amount of VAT that is owed to the private sector in this country is $6 billion, not $3 billion. Okay? So what they are doing is addressing half. So that's the first thing. The interest rate of 1.5 is not attractive to trade, and I would be surprised if the business sector as a group accept this bond. But let's see. Now, the reason why I say that is because the problem with the VAT is cash flow for the business. The same way that the minister says that he has a cash flow problem for government. So, for instance, he addresses the issue of the petroleum taxes to deal with his particular cash flow so that he can get cash. But in this instance, they will not get cash. And if they want cash, they have to go and trade it. They have to trade it at a discounted rate, Madam Speaker. And there is a law on the books in this country about VAT, which is that if the government doesn't pay VAT for 6 months, they are supposed to pay them 1% per month on the VAT that they owe the business people. So the law has been broken, and we have a situation where they are not going to get cash. And we're going to end up possibly, if they accept the bond, with not bond trading, but debt trading on the market. So, and the final question in relation to this VAT issue, if we are running deficit, as the minister admits that he is, how with deficits are you going to meet the current payments which the minister commits in the budget statement, Madam Speaker? So that is a real problem. The tax-free agriculture issue, I listened to the minister responsible for agriculture yesterday. I was not convinced that it will do anything to cause the agricultural sector to explode in production. I really do not. I have about 3,800 farmers in my constituency. And that measure, the tax-free issue, is not going to affect them in a positive way. It is better than taxation. The minister said they're hiding. But I will deal with some of the issues in agriculture in a minute. Just one or two issues because my colleague from Oropouche West dealt with it substantially in her talk. The energy fiscal measures will improve the cash flow of the government, as I mentioned, but it will have no great impact on the incentivization of the energy sector to invest, to drill. We need to think differently in the energy sector. Life insurance measure will require legislation to support tax compliance, so we have to wait on the legislation for this to take effect. And the popular, one might say populist increases. I want to deal with that because the issue there is not the measures which anybody can support because people will get better wages, they'll get increased income, and so on. You'll get increased opportunity, and we are happy for the citizens of this country because they have been going through a guava season. So we are happy for that. The difficulty with this are the lack of contextual framework and the policy issues that it is going to impact on going forward. And they are going to lose control of the policy with this. So the CPEP increase, the Honorable Leader of the Opposition raised the issue of minimum wage. The member for San Fernando West as Attorney General immediately came and said, of course we ain't gonna break the law, it'll be minimum wage plus 15 for 15%, etc. URP increase as well. The OJT increase, we're happy 8,000 people are going to be employed. The OWTU refinery, we are happy that the OWTU ownership of the refinery, we think that it is good that the refinery has remained in local hands. The challenge we have is what are the financial arrangements to address it, okay? So I want to say a few words about this. If we have an increase in wages of 15% in any sector, and this particular sector has been chosen, what do you think that will do to the industrial relations climate, Madam Speaker? If I am a union leader and I'm going to the negotiating table, where do I start? 20%. My minimum negotiating position starts at 15, and then I move from that. And I want to ask the question, what is going to be the net effect of that on the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. And even if they manage the industrial relations matters effectively, it is going to cost us in the long run. The second thing is the OJTs. The reason why I have a concern about that is this. There are about 6,000 OJTs now, graduates from the tertiary sector now who are unemployed. Some of them are unemployed for a year, 2 years, 3 years, etc., as the case might be. And this may very well be seen as a way of absorbing them. So that's why I said I'm happy for that. The problem with this is that unless you have a strategy, and I'm sure my colleague from Chaguanas East is going to speak on this. Unless you have a strategy for linking tertiary output with diversification and transformation strategy, and a manpower plan that is linked to where you are going, we are going to have a real problem. And you absorb them as OJTs, but you have not solved the sustainability issue. Just as with the CPEP and URP, you have solved the wage issue for them, and you've solved the quality of life issue and the amount of income that they have in their hand, but you've not solved the economic sustainability problem for Trinidad and Tobago. So I think the problem with this is that they are populist measures, but they are not good policy measures because they lack the other attendant measures of policy to support them, to make sense of them. Now, I noticed that subsidies and transfers remain at a high level, close to 60% almost, and that also is not sustainable. And I note the growth figures, 2019, the Minister of Finance talks about 1.7, and 2020 talks about 1.9, 2021, 4.1, 2022, 3.6. I noticed that the minister projects about the future and doesn't talk about the present. He never mentioned minus 0.2 growth for 2018, Madam Speaker. He said it was flat growth. He never mentioned the number. And therefore, what we have here really is a failing economy which has been in decline for 3 consecutive years. And what we have, that is fumes, projections about the future in a situation in which the projection for 2018, which was 1.9, turned out to be 2.1% less, minus 0.2. So the Minister of Finance says that the debt is 62.5% of GDP, and that is within reasonable limits. I wonder if that includes everything. The servicing for debt as a percentage of revenue is 17.5%, Madam Speaker, sorry. In addition to that, as I said, there's an overdraft of 10.6 billion if we use 2017 figures that we have. And there's an indebtedness that we need to be cognizant of, which is about $58 billion more. And we have debt that is rising, GDP has been falling. We have debt that is more than publicly declared. The ratio of 62.5 does not reflect a true picture of our debt situation. The economy is not growing, and that affects our ability to pay. And in general, if the debt is growing and the GDP is falling, the debt to GDP ratio should arithmetically be higher, Madam Speaker. So the 2018 growth is 0.2, as I said. I have problems with some of the other numbers. The 3% price assigned for natural gas, that could be a problem, but it also has implications for the revenue numbers, Madam Speaker. Because if the revenue numbers are based on 3.0 and it turns out to be less, then we have a problem. The debt figure is understated, as I said. Some statements in the budget are not supported by allocation. The CPEP issue, which Dr. Bishnu Raghunath pointed out, for instance, and anyone who critically assesses the minister's output or his point of view, all of them are attacked. The minister does it all the time. Okay? The collection of $2.3 billion in taxes during the amnesty period, Madam Speaker, includes money from the oil companies, which boosted the amnesty, and they include money from local companies. And I want to say something about that. You can't come and say that the amnesty gave you $2.3 billion. You have to acknowledge that you got that money negotiated with the oil companies. But you also have to understand that the local companies that paid their money, many of them are people who are in dispute with the BIR about the amount of tax that is being assessed. And they are fighting those issues. And what they have done is, rather than face a situation where they fight with the government, don't give them the taxes, and if it goes against them, they have to pay interest on it. What they have done is paid their taxes. So if they win their cases, and I'm sure some of them will, if they win their cases, the government has to give them back. I just want to make that clear to the population. Okay? Now, this minister has also given us the wrong forecast for 2018, and I don't feel we can trust any of his predictions for 2019, for 2020, for 2021, and 2022. And the final thing I want to say on these numbers is this. We have a situation in which this report that I read from the central bank, which was published in October, but which was based on the numbers up to July of that year, that particular document had the growth rate for 2018 as 1.9, which was the promise of the minister and the CSO provisional figures. And it was published in October, just a week, I think, before the budget was actually read, Madam Speaker. The second thing is that the CSO you would read in the review of the economy is no longer going to be doing projections for this country for growth. Okay? They take that away. There's a nice rationale for it. They say there are international discussions that took place that establish best practice. And therefore, but where has it gone? It has gone to the Ministry of Finance. Okay? So the Ministry of Finance is now forecasting all this growth. They're not coming from central bank. They're not coming from the, because the central bank used to do quarterly assessments of growth. The CSO never did that. They always did annually. But so central bank is not going to do that. CSO is not going to do that. The Ministry of Finance is going to do this. So I think that we're in for a lot of trouble going forward. And while they're talking about independent statistical institute on the one hand, they are organizing their business to control people's thinking about what is happening in the economy. And when you think of the narrative that has come here, in which they're basically only talking about what's going to happen and not what happened or what they're doing, then we have a problem. But there are other problems with the numbers, Madam Speaker. When you look at the draft estimates, page X10, well, that's just in Roman numeral 10. You see that the 2019 estimates for borrowing was 1.551 billion. You know what was the revised estimates under 2019? Remember I just said 1.5 billion? It is 7.845 billion. That is the revised estimate from 2018 to 2019 for borrowing in this revenue document here. And let me mention another thing, because you see this, I think all the questions in the budget are questionable. All the budget numbers are questionable. The page I'm looking here is for 5. That's to say Roman numeral 5. Look at this. Taxes on income and profits. It is down by, it was the estimates in 2019, 207,045. In 2020, 20,9,500. So the estimates for taxes on income and profit are down. So from my point of view, that is wise, prudent, and realistic. So if it goes up, you're in a better place. I have no problem with that. But the taxes on goods and services goes from 8.017 to 864. That is a $500 million increase on the taxes on goods and services, Madam Speaker. Now, how is it possible from the taxes of business to go down and the taxes from goods and services to go up by that number? I feel we have another discrepancy here. And putting the revenue numbers, I feel, it was taking the expenditure side, going to the revenue side, and then looking at how you could fill in the blanks. And then taxes on international trade. Now, this is a strange one. There is an increase of $500,000. All right? I don't know. I mean, I won't quibble with that. It's $500,000. But the point I'm making is the general point about numbers. And this general point about numbers is that we really can't believe nothing they tell us. We can't believe nothing that they say here. And we cannot believe anything that they tell us is going to happen or they're going to do. I think as a citizen of this country, I stretch my hand out to other citizens and I say, we are really, really in a unholy place. Now, how many minutes do I have?
So that you just have, well, your time is spent now. You have 10 more minutes to wrap up, yes.
Okay. Now, the incentives to the energy industry really is not going to make any difference. As I say, it will improve the cash flow, but it won't do anything else. And the only point I want to make with that, we are not the energy capital of the Caribbean anymore. Ghana is. Mm-hmm. And therefore, if we want, no, I'm not glad at all. I'm very unhappy about that. But we should be doing 2 things. One is to make this a more attractive, competitive investment. And the second thing that we should do is to have a serious mobilization strategy at home for engagement with the energy sector in Ghana. The SPT tax credit from 20 to 25% to stimulate exploration. I think Ernst & Young said it best in their report. They said this minor change may not be viewed as sufficient. Very succinct. It's not going to make any difference, Madam Speaker. Okay, other issues in the budgets. The cement sales, the motor sales, the retail sales, which have improved from a decline position are now only at very benign levels. And the stark truth is that the non-energy sector is weak in terms of the balance of trade, in terms of contribution to growth, and contribution to diversification, and contribution to investment, despite what the Minister of Trade said. We have in this budget one-off revenue measures that are not sustainable. We are happy for the one-off measures because things would have been worse. But it helps us with the balance sheet this time, but it does not advance sustainability. And I want to say one other thing about the budget numbers, Madam Speaker, because it's very important to the whole revenue thing. If you have a one-off intake of $5 billion, and you're not going to get that again, where are you going to get the $5 billion from? Okay? That's a very important issue. And I forgot something here, which is the VAT intake, you know. They have a number for it. And when they look at the VAT income, I can't find it here, but it's in my head. I know what it is. They have a VAT income projected at $7 billion, but they commit to pay back VAT. So unless the minister tells me that's a gross figure, not a net figure, then we have another income issue involved. And as I asked the question already, if you have a deficit, how are you going to get the money to pay back the people on time? Their VAT. Now, the other thing I want to say is that is debt and servicing of debt at the level that we are talking about here, Madam Speaker, makes it very difficult to invest in any areas of growth. Okay? You see, the leader of the opposition, they may come here and they may say all kinds of things about her, but you're a very wise lady. If you notice, most of her investment measures were either public-private or private investor-led. And the reason for that is because she knows that when we go into government this time, the room space for debt and for fiscal space is almost non-existent. And they are going to have the same problem this year, and they're going to have it if God come out the thoughts of our people and they go back in, they're going to have the same problem. Whatever government goes, we're going to have the same problem. So the crisis in our country is so deep and the economic deterioration so steep that systemic cross-cutting interventions which will trigger transformation are the only things that can make a difference now. These little tinkering things, and you notice the tinkering here, light bulbs for energy, all right, CPEP thing for wages, but no policy, no macroeconomic framework, no supporting framework. That is not going to work, Madam Speaker. We are in a bad way in relation to that. It will, there are other things, you know, but I do want to say, since I just have 5 minutes, I want to say something about just one thing, and that is the issue of small businesses. I'm just looking for the numbers here, Madam Speaker, or else I could speak about it from my head, but I want to look at the numbers. There are about 26,000 businesses in Trinidad and Tobago. This is based on the CSO register. And out of that, we have about 16,000 SMEs. There was another report done in 2013, 2014, which made the figure for small businesses a lot higher. And generally, SMEs are about 75 to 80% of the businesses in this country. And if you notice, even based on what the Minister of trade said, you would see that most of the businesses she says are investing are small and medium businesses. A lot of the manufacturers are small and medium businesses. And if you have 80% of your businesses that are small and medium, and many of them family-owned, and if you understand that family is important and you want to look after the family, make them sustainable, then family business and small and medium enterprises are very important, because the structure of the economy of Trinidad and Tobago is one in which you have the multinationals in energy, the other multinationals in non-energy, there are about 100 of them. Then you have the banking sector and the financial sector. Then you have the conglomerates, which were all family and small businesses before. They only became big over time. And therefore, if you have 80% of your productive sector in family businesses and small and medium businesses, you want a strategy that would allow them to become big and start to move from retail to export. And I want to close on that issue, Madam Speaker, because while we're dealing with, if we're dealing with diversification, if we're dealing with transformation, we must not only understand the structure of the economy, big oil, big multinationals, big conglomerates, big banks, big importers, etc., and then small and medium businesses, and we want them to grow and to export and become big too. You must understand that that is the issue of sovereignty at work here. Because, you know, they got all their things, they went to the OWTU because they know we were talking about employee share ownership plans. They expanded their housing program because we said that unless you had stability in housing for the working class to grow the middle class, then you could not have your people developing with equity as you grow in the society. All of those things are influenced by that. They are not influencing us, we are influencing them. But I want to say the small business, the medium enterprise strategy is critical for Trinidad and Tobago. How much you have? Okay. And this to me is very vital, because that is where you create the jobs. They create the most jobs. In every society, especially in the European Union, in the Nordic countries, in many of the countries around us now, like Dominican Republic, Costa Rica, etc., the whole focus is on small and medium enterprises. So you could create more jobs, you can have more local ownership. That is the issue of sovereignty. Because if the Chinese or the Americans or the companies from those countries own your country, that is a different thing from if your local people own your country. So it's not only about jobs and job creation, it's also about business creation. And this budget is very weak on all the things that have to do with recovery, growth, development, and job creation, and very, very, very misguided on the issue of taxation, and on the issue of revenue, and on the issue of debt and debt servicing. Thank you very much.
Members, I believe it's agreed that we take the suspension now. We'll be back at 2:35.